It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
All right, we are live. March 15th, 2026. AEW Revolution is currently live on the air. And all I know so far is that Willow Nightingale retained her championship and Jack Perry won Ricochet's championship. So if you're following our predictions, we predicted Willow Nightingale would retain her singles title, but later on lose her tag title. We couldn't really predict Ricochet's match because we didn't know any of the participants other than Ricochet and Ciampa. So I guess congrats to Jack Perry, right? During this show, and we're probably going to go off the air before Revolution ends because Lord knows what time that pay-per-view is going to end. We'll give some updates along the way. I know some of our friends live in the chat room right now are watching Revolution. So if any match updates come in, does Mercedes Moné make her return? It's something that we've talked about a few times. I think it could very well happen, especially in Cali. If anybody else makes a surprise debut or return, share it. And I will give you public acknowledgement for it. So I'm a little bit, one fall says Jay White might return. I hope he does. It's kind of amazing when you think of Jay White and Adam Copeland and Mercedes Moné. And I know these are all older wrestlers, even though Jay White is a little bit younger. But you realize how many legitimate names that are not being used right now for various reasons. I mean, my God, look at what's still going on with Adam Cole. Buddy Matthews, you don't know if that guy's ever going to return to wrestling. There's names on there that legitimately should be selling out buildings. Not in full, but you know that some people would pay to go see those people appear. It's kind of surprising how many names that are not currently on TV for various reasons. I mean, you heard the history show on Saturday, that comment from Tony Khan about Camille. It's mind-blowing that it's already a year since he said what he said, and the full 12 months went by and nothing, absolutely nothing. By the way, I'm not putting any clips from the history show on for tonight's show. Let's hope nobody else dies while we are live. That was pretty rough, man. Last week, if anybody missed last week's show, live on the show, I got a phone call that a friend of mine, passed away, and just really, really awful. We went to the funeral on Friday, got together yesterday. We ended up going to Cheesecake Factory. First time I've ever been to Cheesecake Factory, and I don't know. I wasn't very impressed with it. I don't know if any of you out there ever been to Cheesecake Factory. I don't normally do this, but leave your comment in the comment section, and I will see it, and everyone else will as well. Has anyone else out there been to the Cheesecake Factory? I didn't order any cheesecake, though. If anybody's going to ask me, what did I order? I had pretzel bites with a little bit of mustard, and I had chicken piccata. Not impressed. And some strawberries. I know. Ronan said what I expected. You don't go to Cheesecake Factory for the food. You go there for the cheesecake. I get it, but, it was somewhere nearby, and that's where we ended up. So, how's everybody doing? I'm sure you saw by the thumbnail, we had to bring it back. We absolutely needed to bring it back. Ruthless regression. That's a phrase that I think sometimes is overused with the WWE, but after I watched Friday SmackDown, And I'm not necessarily complaining about Randy Orton's turn. I mean, anybody that has followed Randy Orton's career enough knows that guy loves to be a heel. He strives at being a heel. Him being a heel in this feud was very necessary because, you know, there's a lot of buzz about Cody Rhodes. I'm just going to be very quick with this and we'll get right into questions because I don't want this to be an all-nighter tonight. We'll just, we'll have some fun. We won't overstay our welcome. And I do have a couple of, not necessarily announcements, but a couple of things I think you probably want to know about the shows in the very near future. But first, about Cody Rhodes. I saw the interview with Chris Van Vliet. And the thing that, we need to remind ourselves sometimes is that social media is definitely a very important part of the wrestling product. Being a wrestling fan, it's a very important part of the product. You can't ignore it anymore. I'm old enough to remember when WWE used to ignore social media, frowned on it, did not like any wrestlers having individual little pages and stuff like that. And then I think slowly they started to realize, hey, we can make some money utilizing social media. And, the rest is history. But, is the overwhelming noise out there anti-Cody Rhodes? No, it's not. Sometimes if you have to make a decision between Cody Rhodes and another wrestler that he's in the ring with, that could get interesting. I mean, need we not forget too long ago, Gunther was in the ring with Solo Sikoa. And it was pretty wild to see the fans cheering for Solo Sikoa. I mean, Gunther gets cheers. Sometimes when Gunther cuts his promos, when he talks about respect for professional wrestling, fans do cheer that because they know that guy respects wrestling. And, when I hear Triple H and others, oh, shut the fuck up and be a fan, I got news for you. The people out there that complain, there are a few that will do it because it's a moneymaker, but there are people that do it because they are visibly frustrated with the product. Doesn't mean that they won't stop watching, doesn't mean that they don't still follow it, but they do have a problem with it. And I think there's enough noise out there that it's not just, let me put it this way. Back in the 80s, and I don't like doing that because I know a lot of you were not wrestling fans at that time, but this is probably a good way to me to put it. Back in the 80s, it was more clear-cut, babyface and heel, babyface and heel, babyface and heel. And if you want the greatest example of it, look at the Royal Rumble when Ric Flair won the World Wrestling Federation Championship. Sid Vicious threw Hulk Hogan over the top rope, and the fans cheered. To the point where a lot of you may not even know this, WWF on the Coliseum home video release, and I think repeats later on, they redid the commentary between Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan. And I know on one of my history episodes, in fact, it's probably coming up. Well, no, it's Royal Rumble, it's not WrestleMania. But you could check out last year's history show. I played both clips. I played the clip that aired live when Sid eliminated Hogan, and then I aired the clip where they redid it, and it's complete with Hogan chants. So when people used to complain, in recent years, WWE's piping in this and piping in that, shit, that's been going on for over 40 years, about 40 years. But my point is, back then, the babyface and heel was more clear, but that didn't mean that people didn't cheer for Snuka when he was feuding with Backlund in 1982. That didn't mean that people didn't cheer for Piper when Piper smashed the coconut in Snuka's head or feuded with Hulk Hogan later on. There was always that core audience that was clear-cut, cheer for the babyface, and that was the intention, but there was something about heels that some people always found badass. And that's been life. I'm not, listen, I wasn't born in the 50s. I never liked the 50s. Other than watching the movie Back to the Future, it's probably the only time I ever thought I would love to go back to 1955. But the reason why I say that is, You look at some of the bad boys of the 50s. You know, there were bad boys. I mean, if people even want to stretch it further, you could look at Elvis. There were people that were labeled bad boys that you couldn't bring home to mom. And people would cheer it. They think that's badass. So my point is, you're always going to have some audience out there that is going to cheer for the heel and cheer for the good guy. And Cody Rhodes, I think for some of us out there, and do I still feel Cody Rhodes is the number one guy in that company? Yeah. That guy is the number one guy in that company. Not just in front of the camera, behind the scenes, he is the top ambassador for that company. And, you know, that's just a fact. Doesn't mean that we start getting tired of the same shit over and over and over and over again. It gets tiresome. You know, I know Jim Cornette says lazy booking. I mean, one side of me has a problem with it. But I guarantee you none of you out there probably ever heard this analogy with anybody else in the podcasting world before. You also got to look at some famous movie franchises. Look at Halloween, Friday the 13th, Scream. You know, when you look at movies that have multiple movies, multiple part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Rocky, you know, what happens? You know, each year, the plot is a little different, but the template is pretty much the same. You look at the Michael Myers movies. You know, it's Jamie Lee Curtis, it's Michael Myers. You know, when it was Halloween 1 and Halloween 2, except for Halloween 3. Halloween 3 gets a big thumb up its ass. I hated Halloween 3. But this is pretty much what that is. So if we're not necessarily going to complain about movies having sequels and whatever you call it after that, why would wrestling sometimes be any different? But the thing is this. What do you do now? What do you do afterwards? You know, we had 2024, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, the final boss, Mama Rhodes. And then 2025, we have John Cena. Now we have 2026 with Randy Orton. When does it stop? Is this the yearly tradition now? And let me tell you something else. Wrestling is supposed to give us curveballs. Wrestling is supposed to give us swerves that we don't expect. Sometimes we like them, sometimes we don't. But when you realize the amount of money involved, especially these days, and I saw somebody super chatted something about ESPN that I will get into a little bit because I have an interesting take on something, which I think a lot of you will agree with. When you realize the amount of money that's involved right now, you cannot fuck with a lot of wrestling fans, especially when you're, you know, pushing this and then you decide at the end of the day, a lot of that doesn't matter. I think a lot of people, they're not necessarily angry that Drew McIntyre lost the championship. Drew McIntyre, it was never intended to be a long run. And I think we all agree with that. I'm a huge Drew McIntyre fan. I've been professing for years that this guy should be much higher on the food chain. But going into WrestleMania 42, what was the marquee match that would drag you in, that would pull you in about Drew McIntyre? Not easy. You know, the only thing that I came up with that would include Drew McIntyre as champion was the 6-pack challenge, or 5 men. You know, if there was some way you could have LA Knight incorporated, and you could have had LA Knight, Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, Jacob Fatu, Sami Zayn, and Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre defending against 5 other people. We had a 6-pack challenge way back when, and it was awesome. And then that also really suspends disbelief, like, wow, Drew could lose the championship without being pinned. This, maybe Sammy finally finishes story. You know, maybe you could do this. Maybe Randy gets an unpredictable win. You give Jacob Fatu a nice little rub. And there was so many different roads you could go with that, no pun intended. But they decided to take the belt off of Drew. And Cody Rhodes gets a title shot right after losing the Elimination Chamber. I get it. we're supposed to believe in storyline that Adam Pearce does not like division. But when Seth Rollins interferes and causes Logan Paul the victory, nothing comes out of that other than, I need to speak with Seth freaking Rollins. And then on the opposite side, Drew McIntyre gets involved, and as a result, Cody Rhodes gets a title shot even though he just lost the chamber. I mean, that does annoy people. And of course, at the end of the day, it's all about the money. And WWE feels that Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes is the money match for WrestleMania 42 for one of those two nights. But the thing is, we are regressing, and it's happening over and over and over again. And I think the one that pissed me off the most, and there's obviously a personal reason behind it, because Killer Cross is a personal friend of the family, a very big supporter, even before he ever got into wrestling, big shout out to him. But we actually on SmackDown are watching now Aleister Black and Zelina. How many months have we been saying it's a ripoff of Cross and Scarlett? And now you got Aleister Black actually trolling Sami Zayn. And it's like ruthless regression. I mean, rinse and recycle. I mean, it's kind of the comparison. Remember when I said when you were a kid, your mom made you like hot dogs with pork and beans and Brussels sprouts, and you were kind of annoyed, like, no, this sucks. And then what'd she do? She kind of makes something else, and then you look at it closely, and it's still hot dogs and pork and beans, but just mixed with bacon bits this time. So it's supposed to look a little different, taste a little different, and maybe this time around it'll be even better. Problem is, the Final Boss was only around for a couple of months, and people called it a heel of the year. Some people called it Dwayne Johnson's greatest work as a professional wrestler. And now, ever since, it feels like it's going down. I mean, John Cena, on the History Show yesterday, is the 1-year anniversary of Cena's first promo as a heel. And this is when they were in Brussels. Remember the chubby Cena kid that's sitting at ringside that looked like a deer in headlights? That was the first promo. It's the anniversary of it. When you listen to it, Cena got nuclear heat. Yes, it's overseas. Crowds are a little more animated. Fine. But you come out of that week, that confrontation with Cena and Cody Rhodes, and you're like, okay, all right, I'm interested in seeing where this goes. And then obviously after that, it was all downhill. They couldn't figure out how to incorporate Rock with Cena. Travis Scott was a travesty. I'd rather call Travis Travesty Scott. That was travesty. That was a disaster. And then you realize that, the fans really don't want this. So they tried to make it seem like the fans caused Cena to turn babyface sooner. It was the fans that did it. And at the end of the day, Cena smiles, he taps, and the rest is history. So when you look at it overall, it just seems to be going downhill. And here's the difference. I loved when Dwayne Johnson came back, because at that time, and I'm not trying to be cocky, but the shows are there. It's proof. Kevin and I predicted the We Want Cody movement. Write down the hashtag We Want Cody. We said it was going to be the Yes movement redone, but instead of Batista, it was going to be The Rock. And literally within 3 days, you had Dave LaGreca and others doing this movement in New York City, which ultimately, the controversy there. And, they're just buying into it, trying to go along with the program. And, people thought that The Rock came back and was going to intentionally sabotage Cody's story so he could get one more championship run and then retire with the belt and then go into a tournament and then this and that. And I'm like, that's fucking awful. Who actually believed that? And then I realized the people who believe that are the people that can't admit that they were played or they were just falling into being a fan. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. That's what a lot of people don't understand. And, no, Rock, he came back, he tried to sabotage, he went into business for himself, and this and that. And Ari Emanuel, and they just sat back and let it happen, blah, 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 blah. That tells you The Rock did a fucking spectacular job. We enjoyed what we watched. When Rock made Cody bleed next to production truck, people were saying, look at your fellow friends out there in the podcast world. Attitude Era is back. That's it. They're going to Netflix. We're going to get TV 14 back. People actually reported that the Attitude Era was back. Not understanding that, no, when you get closer to WrestleMania, they do a little bit over the top. That's the annual tradition. About a month before WrestleMania, it's kind of like, okay, let's loosen up the censors just for a little bit, and we'll make sure we'll do it later on at night. That's the formula. And it worked with Rock. We thought it was going to work with Cena. And now with Randy, it feels like, you're just doing that because Roman is a babyface, and CM Punk is a babyface, and Cody Rhodes is a babyface. And do we really want to have 4 baby faces headlining WrestleMania 42? Something's got to give. And this is what they did. Not saying that what Randy did Friday was awesome. Randy was great fucking Friday. Cody did a great job Friday too. But as I'm watching that, it feels forced. It feels lazy. It feels it's regression. And it's like, okay, geniuses, what do you do afterwards? If Cody prevails, where does Randy Orton go from there? If Randy Orton wins, where do you go from here? We're not getting a duplicate of John Cena. This isn't a retirement tour. It's like you got to think a little bit beyond. And I'm not feeling what comes next afterwards. Somebody could help Randy. Somebody could help Cody. Somebody could help one and then turn on him the following, it would be 4 days later, 5 days later, because it's SmackDown. So I enjoyed the Randy Orton turn, but it just felt forced. It just felt, not organically, not even a swerve. When you don't expect something happening and you're legitimately left there like, holy shit, holy shit. We do have those emotions. Usually we have it inside. You're watching the TV and be like, you're not sitting there in your house without a webcam on. How many of you without a webcam on are sitting in your house and doing this? If you don't do it with a webcam on, then why do you do it with a webcam on? You understand? You people do it for attention. I get it. The greatest one is Stevie Richards' reaction watching Vince McMahon get into a car accident. Stevie, you have that reaction when somebody's head just got run over and all you see is fucking half a brain in the street. You don't see it because it's just like a very high, expensive car with a lot of safety features crashes into a wall. But then again, I probably have that reaction when I look downwards when I get out of the shower. So I love Stevie. I love his shows. I definitely recommend it to everyone. I'm not crapping on Stevie. I'm just making lighthearted jokes. But you just look at that one with Vince, the live reaction. That's priceless, man. So I don't know how you all feel about this. I'm fine with Randy being heel. I just feel it just was forced because of the circumstances. You don't want 4 baby faces. And I don't know. It just took a lot away from it. So, and that's my take on that. Let me briefly get into a couple of super shout outs. Then I'll give you my honest take about what happened with this OVW referee thing. I'm not going to spend much time on it for the simple reason that everybody and their grandmother has not only spoken on it, but has given their complete historical, lead into it. I'll tell you the people involved. I'll tell you what happened. And I do have a video clip of me getting smashed in the head at an indie wrestling event. And the reason why I'm showing it to you is because somebody reminded me of it. And I was like, this is actually a great thing to show you. I want to see if anybody could figure out who I alerted when I was knocked out that I was okay. So I'll let you see the video in a little bit. It's pretty, wild. I mean, I definitely regret doing the spot because I threw up 3 times that night later on. My head got rattled from the spot. But there was someone who wanted to make sure that I was okay. So I'll show you that. But a couple other things. For a couple of announcements. And, I definitely want to give much love to a gentleman that supports everything that I do, not even asking a question, which kind of makes me feel guilty when you do this. But he thank you for your generous, gift, my friend. Todd Pelkey calls me the best podcaster in the world. I wouldn't call myself the best in the world, the longest, without a doubt, but I try. I'm very honest. I'm opinionated, but, I'm not going to get over the top simply just to get attention or views or to trigger emotions that are more popular. I'm just straight up blunt with everything that I say, and I appreciate that there's still a lot of you out there that appreciate that back. I will criticize anything that is necessary, but I'll praise it too. I do want to let everyone know, if anybody follows me, especially on social media, knows that for about 17 years, I have been keeping an episode count of everything that I do. About 2008 really was the time where we started really tracking how many episodes. And, we hit the 4,000, we hit the 5,000. I think we hit the 5,000 like 7 or 8 years ago. And the road was to 6,000. And people, especially on Patreon, have been contacting me for the last couple of weeks. Hey, DT, where does episode 6,000, when does that fall on? And I always knew, unless I did an extra show over the last month, I knew that March 15th, I almost said March 13th, March 15th, 2026 would be actually episode 6,000. Today is the 6,000th episode, unofficially, because I'm sure I might be off since 1997. I might be off by 10 or 20 shows. I might have hit 6,000 already. But based on the calculations, going back to the hotline days and looking at our routine, and one thing that I take extreme pride about is I don't like taking days off. If I have to switch a night, that's fine, but I don't like taking days off. So, I could pretty much project when episode 6,000 is 6,100, 6,500, 66, 66. So today actually ends up being 6,000. So, it's just business as usual. No pomp and circumstance. I just thank you to all of you out there who have supported me along the way, and we have many more to go. So, few other things. Not this Monday, probably next Monday, I am going to start streaming Monday nights, not only on Discord, but also on YouTube. I've had too many of you out there asking me to stream Monday nights on YouTube again, for more than any reason that a lot of you like to switch back and forth from other live streams on a Monday night. And it's not smooth to go from YouTube to Discord, Discord to YouTube. You got to load programs. A lot of you just want to click a link and watch. So not tomorrow, but probably next Monday, we'll start streaming from both. So youtube.com/Don Tony. So a week from Monday, we're going to start streaming on YouTube again, Monday nights. I'm working on an additional day also as far as shows, but it's not official yet. One other thing, and thank you, Todd, again. I really appreciate that. I want to show him and everybody else too. Does anybody remember this? Anybody remember this? Call in during the show. You can speak to me live. 225 Don Tony. We are going to retire that number. Also, the email stuff has been a little bit messy. So I actually am going to be doing something that I haven't done in a long time, and I think I'm really going to enjoy this, and I think a lot of you will as well. I am going to be bringing back the voicemail system where you could leave a message for the show. Now, the ones that say, hey, DT, you fat fuck, go fuck yourself, those probably won't make the show. But if anyone out there leaves like a message like, hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about this? And do you think this person's going to return? If it's quick, then I could just download them and I can play them live on shows. So it's probably going to be something like 866 for Don Tony. You know what I mean? Like, or something like that. It's going to be an easy number to remember. I have to look into it, obviously. I have numbers already, but this is when Kev was still around. So having, like 866 Don and Kev, unfortunately, I don't think it's the right thing to do. So I'm going to be this week working on a new number. And once I have it set, setting it up is nothing. So by next week or the week after at the latest, we'll be able to, my browser says my YouTube just crashed. Oh, this is lovely. I don't think it hurt the show. I think we're still live. I think we are still, we're still live. My browser crashed. That's okay. Little gremlins like to fuck with the show while we're live. So that'll be coming back very, very soon. The voicemail system. Now, I will say that, if anybody leaves like 3-4 minute messages, I'll probably have to chop it down a little bit for time constraints. So, yes, I will clean my cache, Jim Con, after the show. I do that. I made the mistake and downloaded CC Cleaner, and that fucked my shit up, man. It deleted stuff I shouldn't have deleted. You know what it reminded me of? It reminds me of where you have like a box of papers, and you want to go through the papers and figure out what you need and what you don't need. And then like your wife will walk in the room and say, hey, what do you want to do with these papers? Like, yeah, I got to go through it. And she throws the box out. Like before I could even go through the papers. That's kind of what CC Cleaner does. Like once you hit the button, it's like, that's it. You're screwed. So I have lost things over the years. There was something else I needed to say. I can't remember what it was. Oh, this is cool. And I think you'll all get a kick out of this. How many of you remember me showing you this? How many of you, this is 30 years old. This is something that WWF came out with back in the day. They used to have a website, WWFwired.com. And what this was, is it was an item for Stone Cold Steve Austin where you can download, you connect, let me open it up so I could show you. It's never been opened before. There's actually a Steve Austin figure inside. You see that? What this is, there you go. What this is you go on WWFwired.com and I guess you can connect to their servers and you could download like sound clips and phrases and shit that Austin says, and it downloads it into the figure. And then you push, I guess, buttons and it talks or whatever. So unfortunately, WWE doesn't have WWF Wired anymore. And this was for Windows 95. So someone actually reached out to me not too long ago. We were talking about old technology and stuff. And apparently on Wayback Machine, there are pages from the old WWF website where you could still access some of the sound clips. So what I'm going to be doing is I do have a laptop that has Windows 98 in it. And this apparently works with Windows 98 also. I don't want to take it out of the box. To tell you the truth, I was going to put it on eBay. I was going to put this shit on eBay because it's never been opened. But I'm going to open it up and I'm going to connect it to my Windows 98 and see if I can download stuff. So if we can, then, we'll definitely share this. If not, then I'll probably sell it. So, that's the back of it. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's just been sitting in my house for fucking God knows how many decades, man. So, all right, let's move on. All right, let me get into a couple other super shout outs. I see somebody mentioned the 6,000 number. Who's this? Who this? Ronnie C, here's to another 6,000. I don't think that's happening. I ain't getting the 10,000. I don't think I'll be alive by the time we hit 10,000. I mean, we started in 1997. So to get to 6,000, realistically, what number would I like to get to? Probably 7,500 or 8,000. You know, if we can get to 10,000, awesome. You know, if we do 4 or 5 days a week, you know, that comes out to 250 a year. You multiply that by 10 years, that's 2,500 episodes. You know, it's not out of the question. 10 years from now, I hope, you know, not that I hopefully still be doing this, but, you know, years fly by, man. Austin Nance. Everyone out there, shout out Austin Nance, who's not only a friend of the show, but he's one of the moderators, along with Chaos and OTS Tribal Queen. He's been a channel member here for 5 years. For the life of me, I cannot tell you where the hell did 5 years go. How the hell am I on YouTube for 5 years? I still feel like I'm a newbie out there. It's insane how quick years go by. So doing this another 10 years is not out of the question. So who knows where we'll end up. Since I brought back Ruthless Regression, the reference, do I think WWE would run it back next year with another Cody-involved heel turn? He could see WWE doing it with Jey Uso. What say me? Guys, how would you all feel if they ran it back? Pun intended. They run it back next year, but Jey Uso turns heel on Cody. Is that just jumping the shark? I mean, are we jumping the shark with the 3? I'll tell you this much. Anybody remember when The Rock did this? No, he did this. No, that's Triple Threat. When he did this, remember? 1, 2, 3. Are they somehow going to incorporate that? Rock, Cena, Orton? Because I know a lot of us thought that way back when, but now it's too far gone, right? Could they do it with Jey Uso next year? I think whoever it is, if they were to do that, has to be very close with Cody. Somebody is saying, Jim Conn is saying LA Knight. LA Knight is not bad, but I don't think LA Knight needs the WrestleMania hype to do that. It feels like it's got to be someone almost like family. You know, Cena doesn't have a family tree in wrestling. I know his father, you know, obviously has done a lot of stuff. But you look at The Rock, you know, what also helped it work was the Anoa'i family and the Rhodes family. Now you have the Orton family and the Rhodes family. You put Jey Uso back in there, even Roman Reigns. Now, we didn't even put Roman Reigns in there. Roman Reigns technically is a babyface right now. What if he were to go back to the dark side next year? I'll tell you this much. If you tell me, Don Tony, in 2027, Cody Rhodes, absolutely, there has to be another heel turn. What would I do? I probably would go with Cody Rhodes turning heel. I mean, they'll be in Saudi Arabia, so it'll be much different. It'll be a different atmosphere. All roads lead to Saudi Arabia next year. So, you know, it's a different crowd. It's a different atmosphere. I mean, you just, and I'm not trying to make it sound like a planet. You know, Saudi Arabia is not like a foreign planet, but the way of life is different. The way of life, the culture, religion is a lot different than our culture. And for a lot of Saudi Arabia fans, and I've talked to a few, and few do tune into these shows, support me, support Jason, and a few others. And what I've been told repeatedly is that they are just more thankful for not only being a wrestling fan, but to see them being allowed to enjoy other cultures, you know, other, you know, forms of entertainment. You know, there was a time where, you know, and listen, even Saudi Arabia, there's still the restrictions with women. But the point is that for a lot of fans out there, just to be able to see WWE up close in person, you know, that's kind of like an out-of-body experience, sort of for them. You know, we take it for granted. You know, in the United States especially, we take it for granted. You know, you got AEW come to your state or your town a couple of times a year, or WWE comes to New York, AEW comes to New York, other play, there is an option. There's always something available for me to go to live and in person if I want to. For a lot of people, it's just never a possibility. So you can kind of do things a little different. And if WWE really wants to have a WrestleMania where Cody Rhodes is a full-blown heel and not have to worry about fans trolling or just going along with the program, Saudi Arabia may be the place to do it. I don't know. But Jey Uso is not a bad idea. Sami Zayn, do we wait another year? I can't take another year of this. I mean, they took everything that was built with Cross. You'll never be champion. And now they're starting all over again with Aleister Black, and it sucks. Just to say it bluntly, it sucks. Aleister Black, I have nothing against him. Love the House of Black. Always wanted to see him do better in the WWE. Was pissed towards the end of his first WWE run. Remember when we used to make fun of him? Remember Kev and I used to make fun of him? That he'd be in a dark room, and he would just say, "Fight me." And we would be like, "Motherfucker, you're the one locked up in a hotel room with the lights off. If you want to fight people so bad, show up at the fucking arena and kick somebody's ass. Do like some of these whack jobs with mental problems in California that just walk down the street and just punch somebody out for no reason. Go backstage, WWE, somebody's just getting themselves a cup of coffee and just walk by them and just crack them in the mouth. You want to fight someone? And I'm talking storyline. It's not Aleister Black's fault. But they did these stupid storylines. Remember the dark room? Fight me. Dick, you're the one with a locked door. Fight you? It's like everybody in their mother's basement does that. It's not his fault, but you look at him now. He looks, man, I'm going to get myself in trouble for saying this. He looks like an older, scrawny man trying to look tough. You know what I mean? I think it's the years of him and Zelina on social media, going to a yarn store. What yarn should I use for this project? Let's play with the cats. I love their videos. I'm a huge fan of Aleister Black. But now they're getting the label as Zelina and Aleister Black are Scarlett and Cross on Wish. And you remember that was Saraya and her brother. With all due respect, remember when Saraya was still in AEW with her brother? And he was wearing the leather jackets? I made a thumbnail one week. And I said, this is Cross and Scarlett on Wish. You saw the pose with Saraya and her brother. And I'm like, oh my God, they're cosplaying Cross and Scarlett. Now you're doing that with Zelina and Aleister Black. And it ain't helping them. It ain't helping them at all. It's kind of depressing to see, and it's annoying. I don't want to see another year of Sammy emotionally confused. No. Ooh, no. Thank you for that, Ronnie. Brooklyn Petey, any update on Pom Pom Girl? No. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I really haven't looked either, but I say this not to be extremely soft, but I think deep down inside, we all kind of feel this a little bit. She's got to return to the net and just suck it up. You don't want someone who is just mentally derailed because of this. Listen, I've been saying this since I started my hotline in 1997. Wrestling is the land of misfit toys. I mean, ECW was kind of like the promotion of misfits in the 90s. That's what it was stereotyped. But wrestling has always had its oddities. Believe it or not, the other day I found, if anybody goes back with me in the hotline days, there was a wrestling hotline of a guy that we were friendly with, but was weird. He would dress up like Michael Jackson. I don't know if anybody ever went to the Garden in the 90s and would see one guy there that would look like Michael Jackson. This was Vinny G, the Chokeslam Wrestling Hotline. I do have audio clips of it back in the day because we trolled him too. But he would show up at the Garden and take pictures with wrestlers, and he would email it to me. And it was just weird. And I'm like, you're a fucking weirdo. But I'm like, thank you. He took pictures with Vince, Cena, Linda McMahon. I have them all. And he actually has like a paper on one of them that says wrestling-news.com on it. Everybody took a picture with Michael Jackson. That's what people, did you see Michael Jackson at the Garden? So the reason why I say that is wrestling has always been filled with characters. It's just that sometimes people think that they're the attraction and not the reverse. And sometimes someone who is just really being innocent, but in the process has a train wreck like what happened with Obafemi. You know, you go on social media and you blame this on Obafemi and make him come off as a jerk. You know, you're the one that's going to get handed it. And she fucking ran off of social media. I don't think anybody tried to chase her off social media, but, you know, let's be honest, guys. We have no fucking idea what's going on right now. I'm sure she's on social media under a different account, just observing and seeing what's going on. But that was someone that mentally could not handle that. You got to be careful sometimes, man, because you just never fucking know. You never know what is going to push someone over the edge. I mean, look at that video with Thea Hale last week. You know, oh, this was another announcement I wanted to make for all of you, and I mean this sincerely, especially those that are just listening right now, for all of you that have been leaving comments on Spotify. Up until this week, I really did not have the access to Spotify like I always should have. I always just felt, oh, the RSS feed just feeds to Spotify. You get the episodes, they're fine. But now I have set it up, and you're going to see me interacting and responding to a shitload of comments over there, because it is amazing how many people have been leaving comments for the shows, mostly positive, obviously, but I'm going to start interacting with all of you. But in the process of setting this up over the weekend, I saw a few comments about Thea Hale. And there was one person that was, you know, just would not let go about being an absolute asshole. And the thing is that you truly don't know what is someone's breaking point, and you don't ever want to find out sometimes. Sometimes someone's breaking point, there's no return. You're at the point of no return. So Ronda Rousey's at AEW. Huh. Okay. All right. So you know what? Listen. So we have no updates, Pete, about Pom Pom Girl, but, you know, I think she should just go online, make an apology, say, listen, you know, I was wrong, I'm sorry, and let it go. And I guarantee there'll be enough people to accept her apology and move on. If she thinks that she's apologizing for Obafemi and waiting for Obafemi to publicly accept her apology, that ain't happening. All right. Let's get some results. Let's see. I'd like to know how my prediction has been going so far. So as far as match results, going for because we know that Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, we can't call him Jungle Boy anymore. He's a man now. He's not a boy. Jack Perry won the international title. But what are the other match results since Jack Perry won that championship? Bloody Money says Toni Storm defeated Marina Shafir. That was one of our predictions. So far we are 100%. FTR retained the tag titles against the Young Bucks. Okay. After that, Edge and Christian returned. There you go. There you go. We talked about them too in the beginning. So far we are perfect with our predictions. Who else? Toni Storm defeated Marina Shafir, and FTR retained over the Young Bucks. Now FTR is going to be feuding with. And let me tell you something. Obviously, I think that Dax Harwood has turned into, in a lot of ways, a dick. I think the right way to say it. I think he just did it. That's a guy that really disappointed me over the years. I thought he was going to be the peacemaker. Anybody remember my peacemaker thing? I thought he was the one that was going to try to help mend the fences between Punk and the Elite. And it turned out that he just was totally opposite. I will say this, though. I really appreciate the backstory with FTR and Adam Copeland. Any of you out there that are fans of those guys, you should go check out a little bit of the history, between Adam Copeland and FTR going many, many years back. There is a very personal, friendly connection with those guys. And I don't know how much about Christian, but I do know Adam Copeland for sure. And I guarantee you, someone somewhere is going to get it out of Dax Harwood that him feuding with Edge and Christian might end up being one of the biggest, top highlights of his career. Win or lose, good or bad, this is something I think is at the top of his list. It's definitely worth go checking out. Let's see. What other match results? Ronda Rousey is there. She's fight. It's interesting that she's going to be fighting on Netflix, right? And, she's showing up in AEW. See, that's it? Those are the only matches so far? Wait, we've gone an hour already. There has to be more than those two matches. I mean, I know the Battle Royal started before the main show started because they actually, I heard, started Pyro for Revolution and the fucking Battle Royal was already in action, which, it's okay. I don't really have an issue with that. So Moxley versus Takeshita is, oh yes, and Willow retained. That's right. But Willow's the pre-show. We talked about Willow earlier. So there's only been 2 matches on the main show so far. How many were announced? 11. 3 pre-show and 11 matches. And they still have 8 fucking matches to go? Huh? Wow, man. That card ain't ending before midnight. Especially during California. It's 3 hours earlier over there. Right now in California, it's only 5:58 p.m. They got plenty of time. So, Jim Kahn says he stopped watching AEW 2 years ago. Is it better now? I'll be honest with you. It's better than a year ago. It's better than a year ago because a year ago it was Mercedes Moné and how many belts she can hoard. It was also the Death Rider stuff. I mean, next week is the 1-year anniversary where Moxley got the bat impaled in his back. They had such an awful match at Revolution. It was Christian, Edge, Christian, Copeland, and Moxley for the 3-way, and it sucked. So they did a rematch the following Wednesday between Copeland and Moxley. And how do you win people over? Well, you get ultra violent. And they really went over the top with that impale spot. There was just a lot of things that people were kind of turned off with a year ago. Plus, a lot of people, trying to silence critics, too. But I honestly think ever since they let Phoenix go, and ever since they let Starks go, and ever since they let Ethan Page go, and ever since they kind of cut ties with Saraya, even though Saraya was not a problem there, I think once they got rid of some names that were complaining, I think it was just that vibe in the locker room was just better. I just think they eliminated the noise. And I also think that Tony Khan has grown up a little bit more. I mean, that doesn't affect the product we see on TV. Jim Khan is asking about the product. I don't care if Tony Khan is the greatest man alive or is a younger Vince McMahon, promiscuous and whatever, or just an asshole. I just want good entertainment on TV. I think it's better. What I think is happening now, and I have a feeling a lot of people will agree, is even though MJF has really stepped up as the leader, MJF doing interviews now, he did interviews before, but MJF now, it's not that, let me put it this way, people are no longer fearing doing an interview with MJF because sometimes MJF would just get really brutal personally. Remember with the little kids, your mother should have had an abortion. You're just saying like really wild, like, oh, come on, man. I know you're a heel, but I live that way. If you truly are like that in real life, then somebody one day is going to break all your teeth. Do that in my neck of the woods. I don't care who you are. You'll shut up very quickly. You'll be eating baby food for the rest of your life. He has stepped up as a leader of that company. And there's a pride factor. And it's coming off on television too because it feels everything is spread out. It feels that it's spread out. It doesn't feel like it's a one-man show or a two-person show anymore. And I think because of that, you're not getting those memorable matches all as like you used to, but you're getting consistently decent stuff. It's not bad. It's not bad. Yeah, we're on year 7, of course. I mean, it's not a matter of how many years. It's also a learning process. You know, AEW started with Cody fucking bashing a Triple H replica throne. You know, and, you know, a lot of the wanted to be the competition and, you know, that real ego being heard from Tony Khan and going on interviews and, you know, calling out WWE as if it's a person with a vagina or testicles or both. You know, WWE's the Harvey Weinstein of wrestling. Well, who are you talking about, Tony? Why don't you be a little more specific? Like, when I call the office, say, yeah, let me speak to WWE. I'll get hung up on. You know, so when he does that interview, says WWE's the Harvey Weinstein of wrestling, people laughed at him. You know, like, WWE's not a person. It's a company. If you're going to say people in that company were grossly inappropriate, then if you're not going to name names, and shut up. And Tony Khan shut up. And Tony Khan also went on Ariel Helwani. So a lot of the behind the scenes and in front of the cameras changed. There's still a lot of problems, but I think it's better than a year ago. It's better than a year ago. So, all right. We shall continue. Who left this? Tommy D. My thoughts on ESPN no longer giving WWE premium live events a grade, yet they still do it with UFC. Do I think WWE is forcing them to stop the grading? No, I don't think ESPN is being forced to stop the grade scale. I think a lot of people in the wrestling world are trying to turn this into a controversy. I swear on Jesus Christ. I swear on God. I swear on whatever you want. I know not everybody's Catholic, but I swear on anything you want. I'm not kidding when I say this. In fact, I don't know if I have it installed in my phone. I don't think I do because I don't. Oh, yeah. Actually, I can. Let me see. I'm loading ESPN's app right now. Okay. And let me see. Okay. WWE. Okay. I'm loading my WWE app on my phone. There's a reason why I'm doing this. I don't know if it's going to be an epic fail or not, but I'm going to go to my login. Let me see if I go to my login. This might be an epic fail because I don't ever go on the app. I always would go on my Roku. Okay, account details. Yes, okay. Account details. All right, I don't care if you know my email address. That's okay. Manage account. Okay, I'm doing Face ID. All right, hold on. My maybe I shouldn't show that. Okay, all right, I'm going to log in. Okay, I'm going to log in. I want to see if it'll show it. I don't think it's going to show it. All right, I'll just click on watch something. Maybe this is, where's subscription? Oh yeah, subscriptions. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if anybody could see that. Maybe you could zoom in. I canceled my ESPN subscription 2 weeks ago. Okay, it's telling me to explore plans. Okay, this is my account. I'm logged in. It's telling me to explore plans. See? I canceled. I have no interest. in ESPN anymore. The reason why I say that, I didn't show video of me canceling it. I canceled it. It's not about $35. It's just, you got Paramount, you got Peacock, you got this, YouTube TV. Like, you have to pay like 4 different things to watch WWE programming. And when I signed up for the ESPN Unlimited, I thought I was going to get back into the retro frame of mind and watch a lot of ESPN old stuff, and maybe I'll get into other stuff that they got. And I think I mentioned this before, after watching a documentary about Bo Jackson and Michael Jordan in the minor leagues for baseball, there was nothing. And I'm like, I'm not giving ESPN $35 a month to watch WWE. I'm sorry, I'm not. You know, I remember the days of $9.99 and this and that, and now, you know, $35 just to watch a premium live event. No, I'm not doing that. Just like with AEW. In very short amount of time, I am subscribing to my AEW. I'm getting a VPN, and I'm going to buy the whole year, and I'm going to pay $119 to watch a whole year of AEW pay-per-views. And the reason why I'm doing that is because, nothing personal, Tony Khan or AEW, but when you turn around and tell me that the United Kingdom could watch a pay-per-view for $19, and simply because I live in the United States I have to pay $50, go fuck yourself. I'm going to pay what other people are paying. Just because I live in a different part of the world. I mean, it's not like the United Kingdom is fucking on food stamps and eating rice, you know, every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You know, you have countries where you're charging people $20 and you're making me pay $50. Fuck you. So I'm going to get a VPN and I'm going to watch AEW pay-per-views for $119 a year. And for WWE, they have not earned the right for me to give them $35. I'd rather spend $35 on fucking potato chips, all right, before I give it to them. What's my point? ESPN has a $1 billion deal with WWE right now. And the only way you could watch the premium live events in the United States is by paying ESPN or having cable that gives you that. And let's be honest, guys, when people are like, oh, I now get ESPN Unlimited with my cable package. Well, you pay $150 a month for your cable package. No one out there is saying, oh, I got ESPN Unlimited with my cable deal, and I'm only paying $20 a month. People are making it sound like, oh, I'm getting it for free, and you're not. Well, guess what? You're paying fucking $80, $90 a month for cable TV, and I'm not. So when people are telling you it's part of their cable package, understand it's kind of like, let me put it this way. It's kind of like you go to a restaurant and you get free dessert. Look, I got free dessert, you didn't. Yeah, free dessert with dinner. Dinner cost me $80. So I'm getting free dessert because I spent $80 on dinner. That's why you didn't get free dessert. So my point is this. Why? Especially when Mark Shapiro just said this in New York City 2 weeks ago. Why would ESPN have somebody like Andreas Hale or someone else give WWE a negative grade when you're trying to get as many WWE people to buy ESPN Unlimited? Why would you have anybody employed that is going to give any reason? See, when they grade UFC, people that are paying big money for UFC pay-per-views are buying it because they're UFC, and it's not predetermined. So if a fight sucks, if somebody gets knocked out in 5 seconds, I'll put $60, he got knocked out in 5 seconds. That's not predetermined. That's just, hey, that fighter fucking sucked. I'm not gonna watch UFC anymore. You know, that's not what, it's a totally different animal. You watch WWE programming and you're grading a premium live event negatively. You know, it doesn't suddenly like, oh, let's move on to the next champion and next opponent. No, WWE is storyline driven. So if you grade this shit and, in 4 weeks you could buy this, you're like, okay, tell me what is dramatically going to change in 4 weeks. So ESPN is not going to do grades for entertainment that is a storyline that continues month to month to month to month to month. So am I surprised ESPN stopped it? No, I'm not surprised at all. Do I think WWE told them to stop it? No. WWE's got their fucking money. WWE's got their money. ESPN could turn around to Nick Khan and say, oh, we only got 10 subscribers. We gave you $1 billion. You only got 10 subscribers. Ain't my fucking problem. My problem. We got our money already. ESPN is trying to get as many WWE fans to buy Unlimited. The last thing you need to do is have somebody like Andreas Hale or someone else who is not a bigwig in that company saying, Andreas, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? We're losing subscribers. We can't even keep these people more than a couple of months. And you're telling people that this premium live event sucked? What's going to get them to go to next month? You know, WWE ain't doing bra and panties no more. Nobody's going to show their tits. Nobody's going to insinuate hardcore violence. Nobody's going to do this. Like, we got to get people in here. No. So, no, there's no conspiracy. I see some of the people out there trying to turn this into conspiracy. It's smart business. If I'm an ESPN executive, I tell the people making grades, stop with the fucking grades. We're trying to get as many people to subscribe to the product. And you saying that this is not good is not helping us in any way. They're not telling them to lie. But that's why UFC is a completely different element. Because UFC is not predetermined. And if a fight sucks, if somebody just doesn't compete well, somebody has an off night, it's probably not going to stop you from ordering the next one. That's why I don't think it's an issue. Jimmy Fingers, thank you for your generosity, my friend. Much love to you. Oh, by the way, Deli Man is here. I know the cameras. I'm going to be fixing the camera too. We're going to change the camera view a little bit. Problem is, you can't see it here, but my monitor is literally this big. I'm not kidding. It literally is the size of like 2.5 monitors together. So I have to, the height is so much over here, so I got to somehow get it lower so the camera could go lower. It's the only reason why it's always looking down this way. But Jimmy says, it's funny to me how many people think this was a Randy heel turn. That was the biggest babyface turn in recent history. Entitled Cody got what he deserved, and the fans will tell you when they are cheering Randy Orton and booing Cody at Mania. Las Vegas is going to be pretty fucking interesting. It's going to be really interesting because Las Vegas is the hardcore of the hardcore fan base. You know, this is not, hey, we're in Disney, we're in Universal Studios. Oh, look, TNA has an event. Let's go check it out. You know, no, this is Las Vegas where everybody that's walking in there expects to get some free visits to to those farms, you know, because prostitution's legal in Nevada, I think. People are spending prime money. So if you're going to hear a loud audience cheering Cody Rhodes or booing Cody Rhodes, I got news for you. What you say, I mean, we know realistically Randy turned heel. That's the case. Randy's going to start beating up all your favorites. In fact, if I'm WWE, Randy's gotta fucking beat the shit out of Danhausen. He's got to go Ortonhausen. He's got to fucking crucify Hausen. He's got to beat the fuck Hausen out of him. He's got to just beat the shit out of Danhausen. Seriously, that white face paint has got to turn red. You know, it's not going to happen, obviously. That's probably just like a disturbing fantasy in my mind that I just haven't realized. But Randy Orton's going to do very violent things now. And he's probably going to get very, very personal with Cody Rhodes. And Las Vegas is going to tell a lot. Because here's the thing. And a lot of you will remember. By the way, shout out to everybody who's live. Pretty awesome to see how many people who are live right now. Thank you. I'm sure a lot of you are in the Revolution frame of mind and hanging out, surfing back and forth. Much love. Back in the day, one of my favorite WWE events they ever did was Cyber Sunday, I think it was. I don't know if it was Taboo Tuesday, but they let fans vote on certain stipulations, certain opponents, certain matches. And what I always thought WWE should have done at that time was only the people buying the pay-per-views should have been able to vote. And I know that sounds selfish and everything, but the reason why I always felt that way, and you can check out old episodes of what I do and you can hear me in real time at that time. That's how far back we go. And the thing is I always wanted the paying customers to be the only ones to answer because I paid. So I should influence the outcome. But you understood that they wanted millions of responses and they were not going to just regulate it to just those who purchase. So, but the idea is if you have an audience and every critique is somebody who paid good money for it, Las Vegas is going to have tons of international fans. Probably 3/4 or at least half the fans, I would think, probably don't even live in Vegas, maybe even more than that. So you're going to get a mixture of international, different people, different countries, states, everywhere. And that is going to be your hardest of hardcore. There's not going to be too many oil tycoons. Like, hey, WWE's, you want to go inside? Calvin, WWE, let's take the ladies. You want to go see some male-on-male violence? I don't know who's on the card. Is Hulk Hogan on that card? Like, you're not going to get any fucking oil tycoons that are just in Vegas to gamble and fucking get laid for free. Well, not for free, but gamble, get laid. WWE, let's go rent a skybox and eat some chicken wings. Everybody in that building is your paying customers. And Las Vegas is going to tell a lot. Going to tell a lot because you and I are not that dumb to spend that kind of money on WWE. The ones that are really going to tell the story. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the reaction is. Takeshka's bleeding. He's bleeding. Do we all agree that Swerve Strickland and Brody King needs to be like a violent, like no DQ street fight? Did they ever add a stipulation to that match? That was the one thing going into today. I'm like, how do you not turn that into like an ice street fight or something like that? There's got to be violent stipulation added to that. See, I will, Raul, I'll answer that in a moment about the ticket prices. I'll answer that about ticket prices. But no, Jimmy, you are spot on. It's going to be really interesting to see. And there will be some fans booing Cody Rhodes. No question. No one has 100% approval rate or disapproval rate. There'll always be an element. And, I recommend you check out Cody Rhodes' comments of what he said about conversation he had with Bobby Roode. I forget what country they were in. They might have even been in a different state. But he had said in a recent interview that he went up to Bobby Roode, and Bobby Roode said, nah, this is an away game. And what Cody Rhodes was saying is that there are certain states that he will go, and he is over like Rover. And then there are some states that he goes to, and the crowd could be a little bit challenging. So he goes to Bobby Roode, who's an agent, and he'll say, Bobby, is it a home game? And how they do that, guys, in case you don't know, is before the event starts, they show videos. They show different things with wrestlers, and they want to see the reaction by the crowd. They'll play something with Hogan, God rest his soul, before he died. They'll play something with this person, and they just see what kind of reaction it gets. So they play something in advance with Cody, and the crowd is booing it, and Bobby Roode will say to Cody Rhodes, nah, this is an away game. So Cody knows to prepare accordingly. Doesn't ruffle his feathers at all, but he prepares accordingly. So will Las Vegas be a home game and an away game? That's what it comes down to. So before I get into any other questions, Raul brings up ticket price for WrestleMania. I'm not going to say this in a talking down way to anyone out there, but if you go check the news wire a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, always around this time, some ticket prices will go down. It's the nature of the business. It's not a failure. WWE is going to break financial records again that they set last year. It is a part of business. You always start with the highest price and see how, I'm not trying to sound like a jerk, but you always start with the highest price, see how many suckers you could get that fucking just snatch it up. And as you get a little bit closer, you start realizing, okay, we have a good idea as far as who's, really, really paying for this. And now we have to see who could we attract next. And that's how the prices go down. I literally just said on a history show less than 24 hours ago that it was a year ago this week that WWE dropped the Hulk Hogan suite packages at WrestleMania 41 from I think it was $9,600, then it went down to $6,900, then it went down to like $4,200. All right. A lot of people were not buying it, obviously because of Hogan at the time. I mean, that's an extreme example. But even with Nash, even with the Steiners, there's WrestleMania packages this year where you can hang out with the Steiners. And they put an insane price to it. And then there was a lot of people who were like, I ain't paying fucking $11,000 for me and my fucking son to go meet the Steiners. No. I'll fucking get an AI cameo video. It's not even them, but I'll pay. So, hey, this is Scott Steiner. Hey, I sorry you couldn't make it for WrestleMania. I just wanted to tell you your father's a very good guy. And I heard and then you pay a cameo. And his son's like, oh my God, Scott Steiner. Then they drop the price a little bit. It's kind of like anything with business. You have a supermarket, you put out a product. Hey, first time ever, we got this. And then some people, I got to try it. And you'll get some people. And then you realize that, after a week, you're like, oh, we got a little bit more left over than we thought. Okay, let's drop the price a little bit. Let's put it on sale. It's not, I mean, listen, I respect James Romero, and I know he's the number one example of it. But, when he puts that video out there and the thumbnail like WWE gave in, WWE didn't give in nothing. This is business. This is every year. I don't know how it works in your country, but in this country, you put out a product and you sell how many tickets, and then it starts getting a little bit closer, and you don't sell them all. Okay, let's drop the price a little bit. This is strategic. It's every year that this is done. Go on to Newswire, do a Google time search. I know that's not what a lot of people want to hear. I think a lot of people want me to say, oh, WWE, you failed. You tried to rip everybody off. I see. You're going to be left with it. No, that's not what it is. I'd love to be over here and do that. It's not the case. This is business. This is how it works. When the tickets drop down to under $100, or you get, free ticket with a purchase of a hot dog, then I'll laugh at it. But this is just business. You're getting closer. You want to make some money than make no money. You're not going to sit there, being, smug about it. Like, we're not dropping the prices. They don't go, it's a loss on them. No, they're going to drop it down a little bit. And then there's going to be some people like, son of a bitch. If I would have waited 2 months, I would have got a cheaper price. Yeah, that's how it works. That's called supply and demand. Some people, I'm not taking that chance. I'm not taking that chance. I'm not going to wait a couple of months and then shit, I can't get it anymore. You look at some of these fucking, I don't have any good examples, but those little plastic dolls, Funkos or whatever that. What's the popular one now that they sell like $200 a piece? What's the one that's out now? Someone in the chat room will bring it up. It's like it's a brand like Funko Pop, but they come out to like Aaron Judge, limited to 100. And it comes out and it's $1,000 a doll. So someone will bring it up. And then some people are like, oh, I gotta have it. And you'll see like out of 1,000 of the dolls or 100, no, Lalabu, it's not Funko. I just said Funko. It's not Lalabu, it's something else. There's another one out there. I know someone knows it. They come out like limited to 100 Aaron Judge, limited to 100 of an artist, Travis Scott or something like that. And they'll put it out and the doll's like $1,000. It's not bobbleheads. There's a company. It's an actual company. Well, you guys get the picture. I mean, I'm sure someone will figure it out. If someone figures it out, as soon as you say the name, I'll be like, yeah, that's it. It comes out, it's $1,000, limited to 100. You sell 10, 20, 30, 40 right away. Wow. No, we said, now if you sell 100 out, the next one that comes out probably going to be a little more than $1,000. Hey, if we charge 1,000 and sold out, let's charge 2,000. And then you see how high you could go before you realize, okay, sales are starting to slow down a little bit. Let's sell it for 1,500. And then you get a bunch of sales, and then a couple of weeks go by, and you realize you still got half of them left. All right, we're going to put it on sale. 1 week only, 2 weeks only, $799. And that's what people do. Now, something like that, it'll always sell out because it's a collectible. You go to a wrestling event, it's a time-sensitive item. You go to the wrestling event, once it ends, that's it. Now all you got is a memory and a bill. When you buy a collectible, you could have it for forever. So it's just part of business. WWE, I think that to legitimize what James or any of you are saying out there. What I will say that I agree with you all is WWE probably didn't expect to have this many tickets left. That's what I think it is. They probably expected less tickets to be available. But my friends, at the end of the day, remember this. I've been saying it for months and months and months. WWE is going to break financial records. And then get ready, take aspirins, keep aspirins ready. The AEW haters out there are going to turn around and say, oh, what do you have to say, Dave? You said that it wasn't selling. They just broke records. What do you have to say now about ticket prices? The haters of AEW are going to just fucking fawn all over it. And the WWE haters are going to just turn around and say, oh, look, the scumbags, they just draining everybody. There's no perfect answer. My honest opinion, my friends, if you have that kind of money that you could spend to go to WWE WrestleMania, good for you. I would never, ever tell somebody that they're stupid for spending that money. But me, you would not catch me alive. I don't care how much revenue. If my fucking family all fucking died tomorrow and left me $1 trillion, I ain't going to Vegas. I would not spend that kind of money. Would not spend that kind of money. That is just ridiculous. It's asinine. I'd rather give it to charity. I'd rather fucking give it to somebody that I know that could utilize it well. You know, that's not something I would spend that kind of money. I'm sure there's things that I would, but to me, WWE is not worth that kind of money. No, 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 no. Just like what I said earlier about AEW. Why should I pay $50 a month 12 times a year? I didn't buy Revolution, but why should I spend $600 a year when someone else in a different country is spending $119? Tell me why. Tell me why. Give me one. There's no. And guess what? I know no one will admit this. AEW would love for me, you, and everyone else out there to get a VPN and buy it. You know why? Because without the VPN, I wouldn't buy it. So they'd rather have you buy it, even at a limited price, than not buy it at all. Same thing with ticket price and everything else. They get money, don't come off desperate, but they'd rather get some business than no business. It's just that, when you have deals with Amazon, Warner Brothers, Max, and all this stuff, and Triller or whatever they use, you can't simply just reduce prices. You make deals with those companies. The reason why they're doing my AEW is because they don't have deals internationally. So they could work out nice deals. They can't do that in the United States, so they're going to be like, shh, get a VPN. That's really what it comes down to. Will Ospreay is back. Good. Have I been to a Mania? I had every opportunity to go to one, and I did not go. It was just that me and my friends could not get together. It was not easy as a teenager to go to Manhattan. It was trains. Express bus was not even a thing for me at that time. Almost went to 10. Did not go to 10. Kev went to 10. God rest his soul. He had an awesome time. When WWE was in Brooklyn a couple of years ago, the same weekend we went to Lucky 13, we were all trying to get together also. It didn't work out. So, someone asked earlier, what do I think is a fair price to go to WrestleMania? That's an awesome question. That is an awesome question. To sit front row, let me put it this way. I realistically could not tell you what would be a fair price to sit front row. Because here's the thing, and I know I don't have them in front of me, but you guys have seen it before. Somewhere in this room I have it. When I was dating this girl in 1990, I took her to see Paul Abdul. That's the infamous concert that Color Me Bad opened up. If I had an AK at that time, I wouldn't have done anything with it, but I probably would have posters in my room. I want to fuck you up. I hated Color Me Bad. But I spent, I think, like $300 or $400 on 2 tickets to sit front row for Paul Abdul because my ex was a huge fan of her at the time. So you're talking 1990, spending hundreds. WrestleMania is the biggest wrestling event of the year, period. So to spread front row, if you're going to have the privilege to sit front row, that's for people that are not in our league. So I couldn't put a price on it. But if you want to tell me like, floor seats, not first 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, but floor seats, I would think like a fair price would be maybe $300, $200 to $300 for a ticket. You sit like in the first section, or maybe even $400, $500 a ticket if you are like second, third row. But this idea of spending $6,000, $4,000 for one ticket, no. I'd rather buy a used car with it. I'd rather buy a used car, even if it was just, something I could just bang around with. I think sitting in the boondocks, I think $100, $200 is fair. I think a fair price would be about $250. You go with a family of 4, you spend $1,000 plus all the other expenses. I think that is more fair. But the problem is you're talking WrestleMania, and I just would not be caught spending that kind of cash at WrestleMania. Moxley retained the Continental title. Okay, so we are perfect so far. Although, remember, I rooted for Takeshita, but I just thought Moxley was going to retain. Roderick says, no color me bad slander. I want to find those pictures, but I can't. It's somewhere in this room. Last week after losing, we almost lost the mouse last week. A lot of people were enamored with my mouse. It's gray on the top and yellow on the bottom. So, Kevin Milwaukee says, shoehorning Lena Cross in a tag match with Megan Bayne is not wise because it hurts Bayne's individuality, as well as the Penelope Ford tag team dynamic makes Megan Bayne look generic. Now, you know what I think it is, Kevin? You bring up a very good point. I think that Megan Bayne has the potential of being the top woman in that company. And AEW is not ready yet for that to be. So by keeping her with a tag team partner, that kind of keeps everything down. Think of Camille. Yesterday we just talked, it's 1 year since Tony Khan was like, when Camille comes back, I wonder what she get revenge on. And a whole year went by, nothing. When Camille first came into AEW, the early buzz that we saw was, I got to see Camille versus Mercedes Moné. What did they do? They put her with Mercedes Moné. Jamie Hayter. Remember a couple of years ago? Jamie Hayter. Oh, my God, I wanted to fight Britt Baker. What did they do? They paired her with Britt Baker. And what happened? All the thought of Jamie Hayter versus Britt Baker went out the window because they were aligned. So sometimes you align someone with someone, one, to avoid the buzz of the potential match, and number two, to limit the buzz around somebody individually. So I think that's kind of why they're doing this. And I might get it wrong, but I predicted that Willow will lose the tag titles tonight. I thought she was going to win her singles title and retain there, but lose the tag title. So we got Moxley winning. I'm glad Ospreay's back because they were not going to bring him back to TV on a regular basis unless he was, close to a return. He might still be weeks or maybe even a month or two away, but most people believe All In. He's main eventing All In. And, is it too early to bring him back? No, not at all. I don't know his medical prognosis at this particular time, but when we heard that he was meeting with AEW recently about to discuss his recovery, that's a very good thing. That was a very good sign. So, 316 MMA is asking, did I enjoy the outcome of Liv and Dom and JD McDonough turning on Finn on Raw? I'm glad we finally had progression with this. I mean, Finn and Dom has been 2 years, more than 2 years going on. And, we know that at some point, Dom is going to be the biggest babyface in that company. I know it doesn't feel it right now. I know people know that he'll be a big babyface. There's just something, I have been riding the Dominic bandwagon, And it's weird because for some strange reason, I always keep a Dominic Mysterio, like a couple of autograph cards on my desk. I have a few of them here. I have some weird stuff on my desk here, but that guy, as long as he doesn't get any serious injury, when they finally turn him, he's going to be insanely over. And it's pretty awesome to see this happening in real time. He'll never surpass Ray, because Ray is just superhero legend category. Dom is in a different, category in my opinion. But I'm glad they finally did this. It's about time. The thing is, where do you go from here? Because 3 women and 2 guys, it feels a little uneven. There is possibilities of bringing in another member. Maybe it's time to retire the Judgment Day name. Liv Morgan, I think many people think Liv Morgan is destined to be a solo star on her own, not needing a faction. And even though we believe that she could still be a megastar and still be part of this faction, look at WWE's track record. You don't see many people who are, it's not like the days of Ric Flair and the Horsemen, that you go years and years and years, decade, with a group, and, somebody could be a solo star and still be part of a faction. You look at the Shield. It wasn't until after the Shield broke up that you saw people individually becoming superstars. Bray Wyatt. It wasn't until the Wyatt family kind of went their separate ways that Bray branched out to be what he was. So WWE does not have that track record of keeping people in a faction and branch out to mega status as far as a singles wrestler. So I like that Dominic lost the belt, because now with no title on the line, you have so many different ways you could go with this. If you have their feud extend into a couple of pay-per-views, because I think some of us at some point would not be against the Hell in a Cell of Dom versus Finn. And if they got to that point, you bring the demon back. You bring the fucking demon back. And trust me, I think that would be better than people think. I also think it would be an amazing challenge for Dominic to work a Hell in a Cell. Not saying it has to be that stip, but if this is going to extend for months, you can trade a couple of victories, no titles on the line. So I'm very happy with it. Very, very happy with it. Absolutely happy with it. So, all right, let's give a couple of more super shout outs. Jimmy Fingers with a 10 spot. Great points on a sequel analogy. This thing is Cody as Halloween 3. Fans are not going to fall for it this time. If Randy doesn't win, it's going to be a reaction like Roman got on Raw after beating Undertaker. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that because, the thing is, again, listen, I'm with you. I'm kind of wiped out with this Cody stuff. Every year, it's like, and listen, you want to add Roman Reigns in there, even though Roman, was still a heel at the time. Need we not forget Brock Lesnar? Remember the night after WrestleMania? We couldn't even, Cody lost, and we thought, oh, maybe he'll have a rematch the following night. And then what happens? It turns into a tag match, and Brock's like, I'll tag with you. And then Brock turns. So you got Brock, Rock, Cena, and Orton. I'm a little tired of people turning on Cody. But, the thing is, we cannot ignore the fact that Cody is still insanely over in a lot of places. And it's not just kids and girls. See, back in the day with Cena, we would always feel like the kids and girls would cheer Cena and the guys would boo Cena. And you would kind of think that way also because of the pitch of the voice when you heard the Cena chants. Like, if you remember the chants back then, you would hear, let's go Cena, Cena sucks. Let's go Cena. You didn't hear, let's go Cena, Cena sucks. Let's go Cena, Cena sucks. It was women and kids for the most part, and some guys. I mean, let's be honest, not all, but majority was kids and women cheering for Cena, and the guys, hated Cena. I don't think it's on that level with Cody. Roman is a different element because people just were angry. They were angry. WWE was force-feeding us Roman. They were force-feeding Super Cena, but Super Cena had a huge babyface audience. Roman Reigns did not. And they were trying so hard to get Roman over. And when he beat Undertaker, and he comes out, this is my yard now. Like everybody in the crowd wanted to throw rocks at Roman Reigns. They literally wanted to throw everything they possibly could. I mean, nobody did, thank God, because that's not the right thing to do. But Cody's not on that level yet. But if WWE is trying to do that, they're definitely on their way. But, the thing also is Randy Orton wants to be heel. Randy loves being heel. And if we're honest, you look back at Randy's career, most of the time, people will choose their favorite Orton is usually a heel. And I think we all agree on that. So this is a case, though, where Randy, this is probably his comfort zone. And if anybody could sell it, he's the perfect person to do it. See, like Brock, when he turned on Cody, it's like Brock's like, I don't give a shit. Just give me my paycheck. Tell me what I got to do. I'll do it. I'll go home. And that's it. With Rock, it was returning for WrestleMania, get that jolt because of the TKO purchase. He's on board of directors, getting tens of millions of dollars. So he was to boost WrestleMania to a historic level. And then after that, there was, I'm not needed no more. How come you ain't going to make it? I just felt like it wasn't needed. Huh? Tell me when The Rock is not needed. That's like turning around and saying, hey, I turned the water off in the house. What do you mean you turned the water in the house? We didn't need water this time around. What are you talking about? Why would you turn it off? Like, how is Rock not needed? Whenever there's money on the table, Rock helps. He doesn't hurt. Cena, I don't know what you could call that. That was planned, man. Listen to that Chris Van Vliet clip that we shared. Remember last week when I got that unfortunate phone call? That was a year before he won Elimination Chamber. You're not going to talk that detailed about not being perfect and everybody did this and talking about turning heel and rocking Cena there. And then a year later, exactly doing that. The only difference was you didn't have Travis D. Scott involved with it. So, thank you for that, Jimmy. Much love, my friend. Much love. Another Jimmy. Jim Kahn begrudgingly admits Cody versus Randy has the better story going into Mania. Did I want Drew to come in as champ? Yes, he did. I did too, but I'm not trying to be a party pooper. Drew McIntyre is, when I look at top 10 employees in WWE, Drew is right up there in the top 10. Drew McIntyre, there's not, I'm not getting a push at WrestleMania. Let me take my ball and go home. I'm frustrated. This is bullshit. Drew McIntyre understands this is an entertainment company. And his job is to be a top entertainer. Having a title around his waist is definitely a because it increases your status and stature and food on the food chain in a company. You're being paid extremely well to be in a TV series. You want to be one of the main stars in this series. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's like, I'll be an extra sitting at the bar. Just pay me just enough so I can feed my family, and that's good enough for me. No, in the case of Drew McIntyre is one of their top performers. He understands that the way the company is and the demand and the entertainment crossover, that it's not in the cards for him to be a long-term champion. And if his role is to win the championship, to reward him, I should say, for this year, for all of his work the last couple of years, if that was the reward. But listen, Drew, going into WrestleMania, it's a much bigger landscape and we got to go in a different direction. And the end game we're going to have to do is Cody versus Randy. Don't give me, if this person returned from injury, they could have gone to this and they could have, no. You look at WrestleMania 42, It's got to be larger. So you got old school fans, you got Orton fans, you got wrestling fans, you got people into entertainment. Drew McIntyre is not a crossover name. I know Randy to an extent isn't either, but Randy Orton has a legacy behind him. Drew McIntyre, it's only been a few years that he's been on this level. For wrestling fans, that's good enough for us, but he was not a marquee name for WrestleMania 42. And there was no issue with that. There's no issue with that. On the surface, we're like, oh, he's quitting again? He just did that 2 years ago. But for Drew McIntyre, it's part of the story. He understands that he may not be the top actor in the movie every single time around, but he will have his spots. And if somebody does go down in injury, then maybe he does capitalize on it. Drew McIntyre is a team player, one of the top people in that company. So, no, I never thought Drew would go into Mania as champion unless he was defending it against multiple people. Because there's no one-on-one that enticed me. There's no one-on-one match that I really felt, yeah, that could main event of WrestleMania. Sorry. Just like the women right now. I know this pisses off some people out there. The women should main event at least one night. No, the women should main event when it feels like it's the right thing to do. And you can't force 50% women, 50% men, 50% matches, 50% this. The people, every WrestleMania, it's the annual tradition. You put this extra weird attention around women's wrestling and WrestleMania. The one this year is WrestleMania this year has the potential of having record number of women's matches. They're not making a statement. They're making more title defenses because there's 2 new titles involved that were not around before. That's why that's happening. You have the Intercontinental Championships and the United States Championship. That's why there might be record number of matches. Not like, we got progress. It's not about progress. You can't take every, form of entertainment that was a male-dominant sport and insist that just as many women tune in. For WWE and wrestling, they would want that. More eyes, more money, more ratings, more business. It's not that WWE doesn't want more women to tune in, but you can't force it. You can't force to make a statement. You have to do it organically. Just like certain sports, certain forms of, type of movies we watch. You look at like some of these love movies, love stories, and some of these crying stories. Like this, it's not trying to be sexist, but how many guys out there want to see a Pretty Woman, Dirty Dancing? Like, aren't those movies notoriously like more watched by women? Some movies are intentionally designed. The Real Housewives of whatever, is that predominantly watched by men or women? It's mostly women. You see certain movies out there. Tyler Perry, the one that just got bought out from Paramount. Tyler Perry. Was his movies really directed towards men or was it women? You watch one Tyler Perry movie, you watch them all. You either had that fat Medea, whatever her name was, and then what was the storyline? Black woman meets man. Black woman is disrespected. Black woman gets revenge. White man looks like a goof. Many times white man deserves to look like a goof. But it was always, this person is this. It was directed for black entertainment. That's why he was the head of BET Plus. They knew the audience, but his platform was directed towards women and more specifically, black women. You can't force, oh no, white men should watch too. No, you have to, know your niche, and you can't force wrestling to be this percentage this and this percentage that and this percentage this. It just happens organically. So, hopefully nobody's having audio issues. Someone else, multi-god is saying they have audio issues. I don't see anybody else having it, so hopefully not. We might have had a little, no audio issues. All right. Thank you, Jim Conn. Earlier, we talked about AEW 2 years later. It's not bad. WrestleMess with the triple nines. You can see Cody and Randy doing a double turn at Mania with Cody retaining and Randy Orton playing the chasing babyface for a post-Mania story. On the other show, he thinks we could get a full heel bloodline back. I personally don't think they should change Jey Uso. I know the perception is that the IWC hates Jey Uso, but that's just not true. I am not a fan of bringing it back. You know, there's a lot of Jey Uso that I don't like. Although I praised the shit out of Jey Uso Monday, it felt vintage. Listen, during the Bloodline, there were times that I said on these shows Jey Uso was the MVP. More important, not that Roman Reigns wasn't the important one, but Jey Uso at some points during the Bloodline was the one person that I was like, whoa, this guy's on point. He just had it. They turned him into a, gimmick. They turned him into a gimmick with the entrance and everything else. Look at his matches. He's supposed to hate Drew McIntyre with a passion, and he's doing the gyrations, like when he's punching people. There was a lot of things that Jey Uso turned into a character, an entertainer, but he is still insanely over. And, the IWC, I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but WWE and Jey Uso wants people in the IWC. Not everybody, but they want enough noise to make it seem like he's the bad guy, because that makes the people who support Jey Uso even more of a reason to support him. You see how over he is at the live events. When you have these people online really ripping him to pieces, that just makes his supporters even stronger towards him. All right. That's why when you watch him do these interviews, he makes it seem like the entire internet wrestling community wants to crucify Jey Uso. And in the meantime, it's just this tiny, tiny, tiny little percentage of it. So Jey Uso does the interviews why don't you show up in the show? Hey, you see the vibe, and maybe I could change your mind. And you watch the shows like, holy shit, this guy's insanely over. How is it? Then you realize that it's just a very, very small audience out there that don't like Jey Uso the way he is. I don't think you give all that up. Roman Reigns they don't need a whole heel bloodline faction again. I mean, it's not even like a rebirth of NWO. Like after a while, it's like, oh no. And then you realize it's Jimmy, it's Jay, it's Roman. You're not going to put Sammy back into it. I think I don't want to see that. It's not even having them reunite. Aren't the Usos good with Roman right now? I mean, when Roman hit Jay at the Royal Rumble, it's because Roman was saying to Jay, what are you bringing it back for? You're in the Royal Rumble. Chance to become main eventer at WrestleMania, and you're fucking bringing it back on the top rope. They're not at odds, so it's not like they're reuniting. They're already together. There's nothing stopping them coming out together. And listen, they will come out together to enhance this main event for Mania with Punk. They absolutely will be together. I just don't think it's needed for them to be a heel again. Randy chasing it afterwards, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if WWE creatively can do it, because they've already gone through the new bloodline. They've already gone through multiple people with Randy Orton over the last 2 years. You're going to have to bring some of that back unless they do a draft. Remember we said, what happened to the transfer window? Nobody brought it up. The transfer window. Remember last year, the transfer window. Did anybody mention it this year? No. So maybe you bring back the draft, shake up the rosters, and then once we see possible opponents for Randy, then maybe you could do that. I like your idea. But I think right now with the current SmackDown roster, I don't know how strong that would be with Randy. Especially they keep making us think that Sami Zayn may turn heel. Then you got Randy chasing, it's I don't know, it kind of throws everything up in the air. I wouldn't mind seeing Randy becoming world champion again. Would not mind that. And I think Randy is healthy enough. Let's put it this way. I'm sure a lot of you out there have seen those John Cena videos where you think this guy needs major back surgery. I mean, I know some people, horribly mixed in clips from movies, try and make it even more look like an invalid. John Cena looks like he is really dealing with some bad back issues. Randy seems like he is fine. So if you could have anybody have a legendary run, I think Randy might be the one to do it. So thank you for that, my friend. Thank you. Before we go any further, any questions? Any other match updates with Revolution? We left off with Moxley and Takeshita. So Moxley retained. Any other matches after that? Anything else? What did Ronda Rousey do earlier? Did she just show up and maybe have a stand down with Toni Storm or something? Because remember, Toni Storm fought Marina Shafir. We thought Toni Storm would prevail, but if Ronda showed up, maybe a little stare down. Is that what they did? Yeah. Yeah. God, listen, I'm live during Revolution. I am not watching Revolution, so I'm just making a guess here. Somebody's like, yeah, great guess. I'm guessing. Yeah. Ronda brawled with Toni Storm a little bit. Okay. All right. Listen, if Ronda wants to work for AEW, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I think she probably would be better suited in AEW because it's limited, and Tony Khan would allow her to work MMA and do wrestling also. So far we are perfect with predictions. What did I tell you? Lena Cross and Megan Bain, your new women's tag team champions. Yeah, when we did predictions on Wednesday, I just felt Lena Cross not going to see two losses in one night. It was strange that they were going to do it a one-on-one. Soon as I saw that they were wrestling twice on Revolution, Willow's going to retain a singles title, set up the match later on, and then you're going to get her to lose the tag title. So far, we are perfect. We are perfect. What happened with Moxley? I think Moxley won as well. We rooted for Takeshita, but we just felt they weren't going to pull the trigger with Takeshita. So Moxley retained. We have any other match results? Okada can screw with Takeshita for losing. Oh, yeah, listen, I think Okada versus Takeshita would be a fun feud to go into the summer with. I think that would be a pretty damn good feud. Be interesting to hear the promos going against each other, but I'm fine with that. Moxley retained and fought with Ospreay afterwards. Okay, all right. Swerve defeated Brody King. Another one. Remember I said Brody would be an insanely over babyface in California, especially with the fuck ice stuff, but even more of a reason you have Swerve prevail. So, wow. So they've gone through some matches pretty quick, it seems. What matches we got left? I know we have MJF and Hangman Page, but you know what? Before we get into more questions, and we'll wrap this up maybe half hour. I think we still have some time. In the chat, who are you going with? MJF or Hangman Page? I'm going MJF because I think even with that stip that Hangman cannot compete, wrestling is always supposed to have storylines, and things change. This idea that, we got to adhere to it, we can never change it. So far we have MJF. Roderick thinks Swerve screws over Hangman. They could do that. That's not a bad idea. So most people are saying MJF retaining. Yeah, listen, Brody King losing in California, I didn't see any issue with that. I honestly thought he would be an insanely over babyface there. What I do want to know is, did Swerve and Brody King, did it get violent? Or was it just a straight up wrestling match? Because I honestly thought if any match needed a wild stipulation to it, it should have been that. It really should have been that. Not JPEG X, my favorite memories are the invasion angle from '01. I didn't mind the ECW and WCW part of it. I know there was some big names that were absent because of the contract issues with WCW. A lot of people got paid some big time money to just sit home and collect a paycheck for an extended period of time. The only thing I did not like with that storyline was Stephanie McMahon being the owner of ECW. That kind of ruined it. But I'll never forget, Invasion did like almost 900,000 pay-per-view buys. And I watch some of these What Culture people these days that'll crap all over it that weren't even alive at that time. And, you know, the one thing I'll say is that WWF at that time did not promise certain people. Like, they didn't tease an ultimate surprise and then not give it to us. We knew exactly who was going in the Invasion pay-per-view, and yet people still ordered. So when people look back on it and say, Invasion's the worst storyline in history, it did 900,000 buys, 850,000 buys. So you tell me how it's the worst in history. Why? Because I don't like it. You know, we knew at the time. We weren't thrilled. Chuck Palumbo? Like, at the time, like, we were kind of disappointed at some of the names, but we knew. We knew Hall and Nash were not going to be in it. We knew Goldberg wasn't going to be in it. We knew Hogan wasn't going to be in it. We knew that a lot of people weren't going to be in it. So there's no surprises. But it was still good enough that people paid prime money for it. So Kenny Omega's back. You know, a lot of people thought Kenny Omega was going to fight Swerve. But Kenny Omega was not going to be wrestling at this pay-per-view, so they went with Swerve and Brody King instead. So I think they do the Slammies every year, but they do it online now. They did the Slammies this year. Yeah, I remember. I think Liv won a couple. They're still doing some Slammies. They just don't do the ceremonies anymore like they used to. So, all right, let's get back to some questions. Mr. Fingers, Jimmy Fingers, 19. Thank you, Jimmy. Does anyone know what Penta is doing for Mania since he now has the IC title? He's asking for a friend. An amigo. He's asking for an amigo. And is he thinking logically that this title should be involved in the Dom and Finn match? I feel that if Finn Balor was going to prevail in this match with Dom at Mania, I don't know if the title should have been on the line. You know what I mean? Because I think it would have felt too obvious. I think now with no title on the line, there's so many different ways to go with this. And I'll be honest with you, I get the weird feeling that either somebody returns or gets involved that we don't expect, helps Finn. Otherwise, JD causes Finn to win. I know WWE wants JD McDonough versus Finn Balor. I have a feeling that match could happen before WrestleMania. But I feel right now, JD McDonough could cause a Dominic Mysterio victory. Because remember, part of the storyline is that Finn became selfish. Finn tried to be a leader, and Judgment Day is not about that. So now Dom is back to, listen, it was not that long ago that Dom in storyline was telling these guys, I'll do this myself. And we thought, Dom's going to work in his way to turn babyface. It was not that long ago that Dom was winning matches without anybody at ringside, and the storyline felt like, Dom is realizing he doesn't need Judgment Day to win. And then they did a 180. Then suddenly Dom is like, are you going to be in my corner? You going to be at ringside? And it's like, you're going back to chicken shit Dom. And they kind of did a little bit of a 180. It's almost like once they saw what happened at WrestleMania last year, they're like, awesome moment for Dom at WrestleMania. But we're not ready to hit that plateau yet. We'll wait a year. And then you start getting a year and they're like, why try to fix something that's not broken? Let's wait until 2027. And then they're in Saudi Arabia next year, and I just don't feel like that's the place to do it. So they're taking their sweet-ass time with Dom. They've kind of regressed. Look at Ruthless Regression. They regressed with Dominic a little bit. Look at Dom 6 months ago and some of those storylines. Look at it now. And you'd be like, wow, they kind of did a 180 on Dom. They did. But I'll stay this, man. I'll stay this. seeing Dom's reaction in AAA, man, there's no way. There is no way he loses. A loser leaves AAA. This step. Like, the guy is. I think he surpassed Alberto El Patron's pop in AAA. Even though Patron became a problem again, behavior-wise, because it's a year ago that he had that incident with the fans at ringside with the chairs and all that. I think Dominic has surpassed Patron's level of popularity in that company. Why would you get rid of that? Why would you get rid of that? For what? Like, El Grande Americano's doing a kick-ass job. Kaiser, I should say. Like, why would you erase that element? Dominic is fucking loving this. Dom is very, very, he's very, the tradition of Lucha Libre and what his father built, even Memories of Eddie and everything, this is very, very close to his heart. Working in AAA, I guarantee you Dominic is not killing it financially by doing AAA, but there is an emotional attachment to it, especially Conan being involved, and I hope Conan is doing better health-wise. So you're not, why would you ruin that? I honestly, let me put it this way. If Dom loses and ends up leaving AAA, I would seriously consider that a legit contender being the stupidest decision of the year by WWE. So I kind of like the fact that there's no title on the line at Mania, because there's so many different ways you could go, and I don't want a predictable outcome. But I also hope that this feud continues way past WrestleMania. And maybe we get the Demon a little bit back. Maybe we get the Demon back a little bit. Jimmy also disagrees with me. All said and done, Dom will be far more popular than his father. Not as a wrestler, but as a character. Ray never got nuclear reactions like Dom. Well, you know what? I will say this. Rey Mysterio was a superhero. For little kids, especially, superhero. I think that's one of the reasons why I think Rey, as far as his legacy goes, would always be remembered bigger than Dom. It's a weird dynamic because you look at heroes of Lucha Libre. You go back 50 years, 70 years, and you see, Santo, and you see some of the other wrestlers. Those masked wrestlers became insane movie stars. I mean, you would see them fighting Martians and aliens, and even I think there was one where they kind of like teased him fighting Godzilla. Like, they would be larger-than-life superheroes, and Rey Mysterio had that element. I don't recall Rey ever fighting aliens and demons and having, what they did in the 50s. But my point is, Rey with the gimmick, with the mask and everything, it just turned him into a superhero. That's why I think Dom's legacy will be a lot different than Rey's. It's going to be a different dynamic, a different aura, a different vibe, a different feeling. I think Dominic Mysterio will be an insanely huge star by the time he retires. And for younger fans, Dom may end up being perceived a bigger star because Rey started in 1992, I think, early 90s. So for a lot of young fans of today, what they see of Rey now is just LWO, and they don't see the Rey, unless they watch vintage stuff. But just seeing what a wrestler did in their heyday is not the same. When we watched Rey coming up in AAA and then ECW and then WCW and then having the feud with Eddie in WCW, and then he goes to WWE, one thing I will tell you, and a lot of you will remember this, we do have the shows to back it up. Kevin and I were not fans of Rey winning the world championship. We just were not fans of it. And Rey definitely got its share of boos. Not necessarily live, but the feedback online, there was a decent amount of people negative about it. It's not really because just of his size, but it just felt very forced at the time. And wasn't a bad run, but take note how WWE only mentions the moment, but you really don't relive or, they really don't emphasize the actual, his title reign. They talk about the moment, but they don't talk about the reign all that much. And it was not as, uniformly received as people would think. That could be different with Dominic. Because when it's time, we're watching Dominic mature right before our very eyes. And, in some ways, people of today will definitely look at Dominic as a bigger star. No doubt about it. But I think overall, when you just think of superhero status, I think that's why I feel Ray will always. Plus, Ray was a pioneer. That's the thing that Dom cannot take claim for. Ray was a pioneer. Doesn't mean he invented Lucha Libre, but Ray was a pioneer that made Lucha Libre cool and accepted in the United States. He's one of many that helped with that. You got to look at Conan and Psicosis and La Parca and Hoovy and I could go on and on and on. The Villanos. There's a lot of wrestlers that deserve credit for that. Not everybody was a megastar, but Dominic is not a pioneer with that. But that's okay. Yes. Never forget the moment with Ray and Kevin Nash. Dave Arlo, do I see NXT and AAA ending up on Paramount? Paramount Plus. I don't think so. For NXT, the cost to have NXT is much lower than obviously the main roster. So NXT, let me put it like this. There's always a budget car out there. Okay. Not everybody could afford, back in the day, it was Lincolns and Cadillacs. Listen, Corvettes and those were sports cars. That's out of the ordinary, but not everybody can afford a top tier car. Or they can, but they just don't want to commit to that kind of expense. So they'll settle for something less. See, me, I live in a condo. I don't live in a house. I don't want to own a house. I don't want the expense of taxes and my own repairs and this and that. I'm fine living in a smaller place with less expenses, a little more peace of mind. My point is NXT would be much more attractive for a lot more platforms out there that don't want to commit that kind of cash. Listen, I heard on the news today that the NFL is going to strong arm CBS with money. And you see what's happening now. UFC not too long ago, left ESPN to work out the deal. I think it was with Peacock, right? They had this insane financial deal. You see MLB doing it. You see NFL doing it. The NBA, you see that the new is, if you're the top tier, the amount of money that is being thrown your way is insane. And I think AEW down the line could be much more attractive to some platforms out there. This is not mafioso stuff where, if WWE is around, no one else is going to exist. There'll always be a platform out there for the secondary. And NXT is much more attractive. You know what? Fucking Brian Kim. I know most of you out there, Brian Kim, most of you out there would never get this reference. Me being an older guy in my 50s, you have the comment of the night. He said NXT is the Mustang LX. That is so fucking on point. Younger friends out there will not understand this. Let me just explain this, and you guys will get it. Back in the day, one of the cars that people wanted in the mid-'80s was a Mustang. Everybody always wanted a Mustang. In the 60s, 65 Mustang is legendary. Even in the 70s, the three lights on each side, I always wanted one of those Mustangs, the early 70s. But in the mid-'80s, late 80s, everybody wanted a Mustang GT. Mustang GT, Mustang GT. They also had a Mustang LX, which was a Mustang, but it didn't have the 5.0 liter engine in it. So you had a Mustang, but you didn't have the monster Mustang. Even, I think, Camaros. I think back in the day you had Trans Am, I think. Trans Am had a lower end model. So the Mustang LX was like the low end of a Mustang. Like if you wanted to own a Mustang, but you couldn't afford the top tier, you can get the base model. That's really what it comes down to. NXT is like the base model for wrestling, and there is nothing wrong with that. So do I see them on Paramount Plus? I don't think so, because I don't think it's a necessity for Paramount Plus. I think they're gunning for all different options, and I do believe that AEW will remain. I think it'll remain. I don't even think it's a controversy. I know a lot of people like, oh, Zaslav is going to do this and do that. I think it's just fear-mongering for some people. I think for some people, they realize it's a nice conversation piece and absolutely talk about it. But I truly believe that this is, let me put it this way, AEW is not this gigantic money loser that people think. And the ownership percentage that Warner Brothers Discovery has right now is extremely small. Remember, you don't need, I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but you don't need Meltzer, you don't need WrestleNomics, you don't need Dutch Mantel, you don't need Jim Cornette, you don't need Jeff Jarrett, you don't need Jim Ross, you don't need Fightful, you don't need PW Insight, you don't need anyone that are experts to tell you this. In the business world, in the corporate world, in the stock world, the stock market, in the publicly traded company world, if you own a certain percentage of a company, once you get to a certain amount, you have to disclose. And the fact that Warner Brothers Discovery does not have to disclose to their investors how much they own AEW tells you it is extremely small. They have no voting power. They have voting power in the sense that Tony is going to please them. We don't want the Briscoes on television. No problem. No problem. No problem. And then you get tragedy. And then fans are in outrage. All right, we'll let Mark. I've said this. I know it sounds awful. But if Jay Briscoe didn't die, I don't know if the Briscoes would be on television. I don't know if Mark Briscoe would have ever made AEW television. See what happened recently with Trey Miguel. You know, Warner Brothers Discovery has no voting power. But because AEW is on their network and somebody high up in Warner Brothers Discovery was very offended by what Trey Miguel said, you know, in 2 spats online, that was enough to scare Tony enough to say, okay, all right, listen, you know, I'm going to have to make this decision. Sometimes someone doesn't need voting power to have power. You just don't want to ruffle the feathers. So the fact that we don't know how much Warner Brothers, let me put it this way. That's why I say to you guys with all due respect, this is not the shit on Meltzer. Even though Meltzer, Dave, I got the yearbook. Don't want to troll you, but you know, we got the yearbook. We got the yearbook. We got the proof. We know the story, Dave. I don't know what personal vendetta you have against some people out there, but you know, that's for another day. But one thing I will say is this. You know, everybody seems to think that $185 million a year for 3 or 4 years was the deal. Tell me where you got that info from. You're believing what one person is telling you, yet they can't tell you what percentage of ownership Warner Brothers Discovery has. Somehow they know how much Warner Brothers Discovery paid and for how long and all this other stuff and pay-per-view revenue and all these other financial details that I don't even think Tony Khan's lover would know. But yet the simple thing like how much percentage is Warner Brothers, you obviously know it's under a certain amount because let's say you have to disclose anything above 10% or 5%. Then you're like, whoa, since they don't have to disclose it, I guess it's under 5%. Like, how do you not know that? So the fact that they never told their investors, but somehow Dave was told, I just don't buy it. But there are so many people out there that will accept it as fact. And unfortunately, you know, people just believe it. They're not going to be able to do that anymore with Paramount Plus. With Paramount, I should say. That'll be handled a little bit differently. Because Paramount is pretty an open book with everything. So, it's kind of like when Nielsen changed their system. I don't charge you money to tell you this, but we told you months before anywhere else that the quarter-hour ratings would be history. They would not be able to make those up anymore because of how the system was changing. And we were kind of chuckling about it on the shows for like 3 months leading into it. Like, I wonder what excuse they're going to make to stop the quarter-hour ratings. And the only excuse they give, we were threatened with lawsuit. Sure you are. But, things change. And trust me, when Paramount takes control, I don't think it's doom and gloom for AEW, but things will be handled a little bit differently. And you'll probably know the streaming numbers. You probably will know the streaming numbers. And if they're good, Paramount will tout it. That's the thing I will never, ever understand about HBO Max. If the numbers are as good as Blowjob Bethel said, or others, how come Warner Brothers Discovery never touts it? Why wouldn't you tell the world that this brand is successful, this product is successful? It's flying off the shelf. Why would you? No, it's our secret. Like, why wouldn't you tell the world? Wasn't it like a month ago that, Dynamite was like the third most watched episode in like the last 5 years or something? Somebody put some wild thing out there. And my first reaction was, why didn't Warner Brothers Discovery tout that? Why would they keep silent? And no one gave me a logical answer, so I ignored it. Bobby, thank you for that, by the way. Bobby means, when I watch Kendall Gray, the first thought that comes to mind is Kurt Angle. My question is, could you see her as the face of the company in 5 years? No. Kendall Gray, I mean, it's amazing where these women and men come from sometimes. You see Obafemi, and, we monitored him from the NIL program, so we kind of saw like, whoa, something's going on here, and that was a good thing. But you also look at even like Stephanie Vicaire, when she feuded with Mercedes Moné. I had no idea she had a WWE tryout years before. I learned that later on. But you see some people come out of nowhere and you're like, where did this come from? And there's some people out there that sometimes come along and you're like, holy shit, she wasn't even on the radar. She is extremely good. I don't see her being a centerpiece of the company. You look at the women that are still working their way up, and you see the women of today. I mean, Jade Cargill has just started. Rhea Ripley is kind of where Charlotte was 8 years ago. You look at Liv Morgan, which is about to go on fucking Planet, amazing, even though she's insanely over. Vicaire is kicking ass. You got other all-stars from Valkyria to everyone else. Ivy Nile, I think, is just breaking through. And I can go on and on and on. Chelsea Green is fucking killing it. Roxanne Perez is doing a great job. I mean, it's unfair for me to start naming women because somebody later on is going to say, oh, you forgot this person. You forgot this person. You look at Kalani Jordan, there's just so many names. I just can't see Kendall Gray just leapfrogging them all. She will fit in very, very well. Thekla retains. Who did Thekla fight again? Oh, Chris Statlander. Wow, we might run the table tonight, man. We might run the fucking table tonight. I'm sorry for being vulgar, but I kind of like getting every prediction right, especially when you got, these Uber analysts out there that will, remember this statement. Takeshita's going to defeat Moxley. There, I said it. There, you said it wrong. This is fun. This is just fun. It's fun for me. I don't know what Statlander's future is. You say, Dave says WWE bound. I've said this a few times in the past. Some people, and by the way, we are going to discuss the OVW situation in a moment. I want to just get into one more super chat. Now I want to get into OVW because I have a Don Tony clip to show you that you might be a little disturbed at, but there's a positive story to it. And I think it's appropriate to mention with the OVW incident. I didn't have any seizures though. With Statlander, I brought this up before. I have been around indie wrestling since 2000 when I did some work for ECW, pushing tickets and other stuff. When I got involved in XPW, when I got involved in USA Pro Wrestling, UXW, Jersey All Pro, VPW, on and on and on. You know, there were people that came along the way that loved being a wrestler, were committed at being a wrestler, but not every single person wanted the WWE grind. There were wrestlers out there that just wanted to support their family, have a nice career out of it, even TNA back in the day. I remember when the SATs were kicking ass here in the Northeast. I remember all those tag teams, you know, the Christopher Street Connection. I always bring up Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. You think of some others back in the day. There were some of those tag teams that, you know, not all of them were looking like, oh, my goal is to be a WWE superstar. Not everybody can handle that commitment and grind. That is an insane amount of commitment and pressure. Not saying I'm not putting words in her mouth. I don't know what Chris Statlander wants. She might want, that might be her goal. That might be her end game, is to have that larger than life persona commitment with WWE. Then again, her goal might be comfortable career, build myself a nice little legacy, but I get to sleep in my own bed multiple nights a week. I could work indies once in a while. I do a little touring. I got money in my pocket. My bills are paid. There's a nice balance. That's why some wrestlers in AEW are extremely happy, because, you know, when you hear Swerve say that AEW pays better, there's a lot of ways that could be interpreted. But one thing is for certain, for some of the lower talents in AEW, they're paid very, very well and work a lot less that they would have to do in WWE. Even just for travel purposes, their jobs are very much less stressful. And for some people, that's their goal. You know, like, people have always said to me, DT, you know, would you have worked for this company behind the scenes, have given the opportunity? And for many, many years, I used to say no, because I'm fine. You know, as long as I have my, you know, my insurance, as long as my bills are paid to an extent and I have my family and whatever, I'm good. You know, now times are much harder, but the point is, back then, you know, didn't want to travel, didn't want to have to do this. Just, you know, as long as I have a little bit, that's good enough for me. And in wrestling, it's the same thing. So I don't know what Chris Statlander wants. I really don't know. Mercedes Moné versus Thekla for the women's title. Why not? Why not? I'd like to see Camille be released and go to WWE. And I think Camille wants to work in WWE. It's just ridiculous what's going on with her. And it's a shame that more people aren't talking about it either. So, Roderick says he'd love to see how Statlander does in WWE. She had a great run in AEW, but she may have peaked there. You know, you look at Britt Baker. You know, I honestly, Britt Baker, you know, she's getting in, you know, like beyond veteran territory. I could only imagine what's going through her mind. For all we know, Britt Baker is fine with her status right now. I don't know, but something tells me that she's got to be insanely frustrated to be in this position and literally doing nothing. And you see that AEW kind of has that thing. And let me tell you something. I'm not trying to accuse AEW of intimidation, but let me tell you something. When you hear MJF doing interviews now saying that, you know, all the cancer is out of the locker room, all the people that were complaining is out of the locker room, and if you do, you know, complain, we're going to beat you up and then throw you out. You know, that's kind of intimidating for someone who is being wasted away. And sure, they may be still getting paid, which is a nice thing, but they're wasting away. And then you feel like I can't speak up because there's this gang of people in AEW that if you dare try to rock the boat, we're all going to fucking, unleash on you. That's why I kind of praise what MJF is doing, being the leader of the company, no question. But also people out there don't have the balls to say to MJF, like, listen, I appreciate what you're saying, and that's a great thing to be a leader. But wouldn't that also make someone feel very intimidated to speak up if they're frustrated? No one says that. You see any of these interviewers saying it? No one would dare say that. They'll never get an AEW interview again. They won't even get Big Boom AJ to do an interview. Even if you offered his kids food. Listen, I give him all the chocolate chip cookies. I'll give him a year's supply of chocolate chip cookies. Come on the show. Nope, can't do it. All right. We have a Wyatt's question from Jimmy. Could the Wyatts be salvaged if they diminish the supernatural gimmick? Bo really needs to lose the mask because it hides the fact that he could actually wrestle. All that fake hair flopping looks silly. You know what the problem is, Jimmy? Nobody wants to see Bo Dallas. They don't believe in just Bo Dallas. Like it's got to be gimmick or nothing. This isn't a case, it's not like a Goldust moment where you burn the outfit in the center of the ring in a container. You wouldn't do that for Bray Wyatt's legacy in the first place, but Bo Dallas, it's Uncle Howdy or nothing. Plus, the funny thing about it is we're already in the middle of March. Just let this sink in for a minute. April, May, June, July, August, September. It's only 6 months. Why do I say that? Because it was around this time last year in the middle of September that they started pushing that the coming attractions for the Wyatt 6, horror thing, the Wyatt Universal Studios, the haunted house. So if they somehow can stick around for at least another 4 or 5 months and WWE inks another deal with Universal for another year of the Wyatts for haunted house, their careers will last at least to the end of the year. But I just personally think, it's difficult to say, but TKO, unless it was making money off of Bray Wyatt nostalgia, I don't think TKO gave a damn about the Wyatt gimmick. They just looked at it like, hey, we can make money off of it, but why are we paying 5 people for this faction? Just remember how long it took before they were back on TV. I mean, outside of if they didn't have that deal with Universal last year, I honestly think, if not all of them would have been released. WWE creatively, I mean, nobody's forcing them to treat them like shit. It's just WWE, it's like a nostalgia for Bray Wyatt. It's merchandise, and that's it. The idea of this lantern stuff, I'm like, it's bad. It's just stupid. And it's nice to honor Bray. They're still honoring Eddie. They're still honoring Hogan. They're still, they come to the ring. Okay, we put our flashlights on our phones on. You're like, oh, look, I'm live at WWE event. Look, hey, here, I'll even do one better. Here, we could do this. Like, let me see. Can I do it? Yeah, I can do it. Look. Hey, he got the whole world in his hands. Hey. And then meanwhile, TKO's like, do we make any money off of that? So unfortunately, there's no emotional tie with that. And creatively, they've done an awful job. Why did they treat him like shit? You're not going to see that on Unreal or anything like that. It's awful. It's awful. I think a year from now, you're going to see a few people released, not just in the Wyatts, but I wouldn't be surprised if a fucking MFTer, a motherfucking Tonga Loa is gone. I don't know. There's a lot less to be desired, and you realize now you can't blame it on Road Dogg. You can't blame it on Road Dogg. All right. we're running a little late. I got to get into this story before we start bringing it home. Obviously, you know the story about this guy. Dallas Edwards, referee from OVW. I do have notes because I didn't want to mistake anybody's names. I'm sure a lot of you out there by now have seen the incident. I do have Al Snow's statement here, and I have the quick statement that the referee issued while he's in the hospital. For those that don't know the gist of the story, there's a very disturbing video floating around online. And it happened a few days ago live at an OVW event. And there's two clips floating around. There's the clip where, you know, once the arena or the officials realized that something was seriously wrong, as soon as they took the cameras off the referee, the video ended. But there was a live stream online with a pay-per-view platform, pay-per stream platform that actually, kept the video going longer. And, the video shows what transpired. It shows him being tended, and then they basically end the event like, look, something is wrong, and we're going to end the show here. Now, just to summarize what happened, there's a referee by the name of Dallas Edwards that's refereeing a match. It's between OVW's Rush champion, Brandon Balling, and someone by the name of Tony Evans. During the match, the OVW Rush champion, Brandon Balling, goes for like a flying forearm off the top rope. And the spot was supposed to be a referee bump, that Tony Evans was going to move out of the way, and Brandon Balling instead nails the referee. Now, when I talk about things on this show, it's to sit down with Don Tony. If I sometimes put a twist involving me personally, I don't do that for clout. I do that to try to understand, and maybe sometimes I can, associate an incident that I've experienced or seen that could be in some way connected. So what happened was the Tony Evans moves out of the way, and the champion Brandon Balling hits the forearm and hits it on the referee with full force. Referee goes down, doesn't tuck his neck in, lands hard against the mat, head first, knocked out, pretty much. Ends up having a seizure. And you're literally watching this referee, which the wrestler, and I'm not defending anybody, but I'm going to just tell you how I feel about it, and I'm going to show you a video of something in a moment. While this is all going on, the wrestlers are still doing the match. And the problem is the referee is having a seizure. Now, I would think in the past, this referee, Dallas Edwards, has done a referee bump before. And I don't think there's ever been a time where a ref bump in OVW would simulate a seizure. So while these wrestlers are continuing the match, this guy is having a full-blown seizure, and it is something beyond disturbing. If anybody remembers the video of Daniel Bryan, when we thought it was a seizure at the time, and we know that what happened afterwards, but even that little bit of gesture had people concerned. This guy was full-blown having a seizure. And what's really, really bizarre about it is the wrestlers in the ring were just more concerned about, getting their spots in. And even at one point, I think it was Tony Evans, I think is the one who, it was Tony Evans. He body slammed the champion, and then he kind of like pushes the referee aside with his leg, almost looking like he just kicked him aside. And, we now know that the wrestler in the ring was trying, did not realize he was having a seizure, was pushing him to the corner so they could finish their match, which all of that in itself is horrible, because you would think at some point somebody would have checked on this referee to see if he was okay. See, one of the things, without getting in too much detail, is even when I was doing stuff back in the day and I would take a spill, and a lot of you have seen some of them over the years. I've shown a lot of my wrestle crap stuff. But one of the things that happens is a wrestler immediately, like if a wrestler dove onto me, or it was diving onto, like there was a spot, a lot of you remember, I was managing this guy Sabotage, and a guy dove off the top rope and was going to body press Sabotage, and instead he moves out of the way. I'm outside the ring. Sabotage outside the ring. He dives off the top rope to the outside. Sabotage moves out of the way last second, and the perception was I pushed Sabotage out of the way so he wouldn't get hurt, and I took it. Soon as I went down, the guy who did the move whispers in my ear, "You okay? You okay?" And usually what you do is you answer back and you say, yeah, I'm okay. Or you squeeze their hand, or you squeeze their arm, something, a gesture to show that you're okay. It is immediate, is done immediately after. And when this referee went down, you see Brandon Balling looking like, oh, I can't believe what I just did, but never really checked on him. Instead turns around and continues on with the match. And meanwhile, this 22-year-old is having a full-blown seizure. Commentators also sense that something is wrong, and yet for another 30 to 45 seconds, a minute, whatever it was, nothing is changing in the ring. You have this referee having a full-blown seizure, and the cameras are still on it. The commentators are not sure what is going on. The wrestlers are still continuing what they're doing, and no one is tending to this guy. Finally, somebody goes down around ringside, I would think probably a cameraman, one of the sides, and said something else, and probably called for the back. And then you saw off camera, somebody coming out to the ringside area. I don't know if it was a doctor, but they halted the match, and then everything went off the air. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen in recent years, because it's surprising, especially because it's OVW. I'm not saying OVW is the developmental territory for anything, but very recently there was a lot of buzz with them on streaming TV because of their product. And you have Al Snow, who is heavily involved with it. And we have also seen in recent years other incidents happen. And, you realize that in OVW, there was no precautions made when it comes to a referee getting hurt. Not only that, you realize that none of the wrestlers in the ring were ever even trained, to spot something, sense something, if you think something's wrong, or check on something. And, as I'm watching this and I'm thinking, wow, this is Al fucking Snow. And I think of, the years back in the day with developmental for WWE and everything else. If this was some bullshit indie fed, you think of what happened last year with Raja Jackson. If it's a hole in the wall promotion that, doesn't realize like how deep they got into something stupid, that promotion never survived from that. But you have a promotion here from Al Snow, which is in many people's eyes, one of the most respected trainers out there. And you realize that none of these fucking students or people in his promotion have ever been advised. And it's not, well, they should have learned somewhere else, or it's on them that they should have been. I don't give a fuck how many months you're in the business, how many years you're in the business, how many promotions you worked. You go into somebody's company and the owner of that company needs to make sure that you have all your bases covered, that you have you can't just simply walk in with a demo tape and a license in some cases and say, yeah, I could wrestle. Because I watched firsthand, and I know a lot of you will remember this, and anyone out there that doesn't remember it, you could Google it, and it's fucked up. I don't know if it was the Chris Candido Memorial Show, but I was working an indie show in the mid-2000s. Might have even been 2008. I don't remember what year it was, but around that time. I think it was mid-2000s, 2005, 2006. And some kid walked in there, maybe like 19, 20, said that he was trained, did this, did some work in the ring before the show started, had his stuff down pretty good. And next thing you know, there's an opening match with a whole bunch of ticket sellers. And this guy ends up taking a move completely wrong and got rushed to the hospital. And, I don't know if he was paralyzed for life, but it was a very serious injury. And if anybody Googles it, you will see the story. And the one thing is, this person claimed to have done everything he was supposed to, and you realize they didn't. So the thing is, you realize that no one in OVW, no matter where they came from, was ever, there was no safety classes being done. There was no, what to do in the event of this or after that. And, that's the thing. This guy issued a statement from the hospital. He had bleeding on the brain, had a concussion. People wanted to open GoFundMes for this kid. And he turns around and says, listen, I have coverage. Don't worry about a GoFundMe. Instead, I implore my fellow workers to get some training in assisting another person's life. It's not just spotting the injury. It's assisting any way you can. You don't move the motherfucker. You think somebody has a neck injury, you don't move them. How many times over the years do we see an indie event where somebody gets a neck injury and they're laid out on the mat and somebody fucking moves them aside? Didn't we see one or two incidents in AEW? And AEW, somebody said it this weekend, if this would have happened in AEW, oh fuck. Can you imagine the backlash? So the point is it's amazing that these wrestlers weren't even trained for any type of first aid or what to do and what not to do in the event of an injury. I stress what not to do. And he's hoping that he can go home from the hospital. Bleeding on the brain is serious shit, no matter how you look at it. He appears that he's going to be okay. But the thing is, it just goes to show you how a stupid bump could do disaster on someone. Any of you that have heard me talk in the past about stuff that I used to do, one of the reasons why I never fulfilled my dream about managing and doing more physical was because I can never take back bumps. What I learned in school, I went to VPW's wrestling school for 9 months. And one thing that I learned, which was so devastating to me because of my car accident, is every time I did a back bump, I could never tuck my neck in. No matter how hard I tried, every time I took a back bump, my neck, I would whiplash. And I would hit the back of my head every single time. And while I was in the school, they're like, look, if you want to manage, if you want to take a spot here and there, fine. But you can't have matches. I couldn't do a back bump. I thought I had one of the strongest necks in my family. I thought I was strong as a rock. And I realized my neck was jello. And it was so horrible to take in, but they were telling me, look, they were telling me do this. I'm literally like this, taking back bumps. And no matter how hard I tried, my head would back. I just couldn't do it. And, that is one of the things. That's why sometimes when I watch some people take back bumps and I see their head go back, I'm like, oof. Like that's a nightmare for me. But the one thing I will tell you is no matter where I did stuff, they always talked safety. Mass Maniac, when I was working USA Pro, they went over what happens with this. Be careful of this. If you sense this, there's always somebody at ringside. There's always an extra person. The camera person is the second one to watch this. Whoever it is, signal something. If you take a bump, make sure you tell the person that you're okay. Squeeze their hand, grab their neck, pinch them, whisper under your breath. You have to let the person know. If there is no response the first time, then you immediately bring somebody at ringside. And even when I did for Fat Frank Iadavia, God rest his soul, the owner of Jersey All Pro Wrestling, when I was working in his school at the time, trying to learn the ropes, even with students, even people green as grass, one of the first things they would do is safety. You don't do this, you do this, you watch for this, you don't do that. If you're not sure, do this. Never feel that you can't get out of character because of this. It's always safety first, safety first. Not only do you protect yourself, you got to protect your opponent. Anybody that's in the ring, you protect at all costs. And if there's no response, you immediately have someone go out there. And I think that's the thing that upsets people the most about what happened in OVW, because nothing was done. No one in the ring had the wherewithal to sense that something more could be done. It seemed like they were more concerned in doing their spots and finishing their match. And I watched some news articles out there trying to defend them. And I took one quote from someone. And you could Google this. I won't say the news outlet. You could find it for yourself. Someone wrote this and reports OVW all the time. Tony Evans body slams Brandon Balling, then pulls the referee to the corner so the match could end safely. The match could end safely. This is what it started immediately coming out for Damage Control. So, very quickly, this is Al Snow's statement that pissed off a lot of people. Hello, everyone. This is Al Snow. I want to speak directly to our fans and the wrestling community regarding the accident involving referee Dallas Edwards at last week's event. Professional wrestling has always carried an inherent risk of injury for everyone who steps in the ring. On March 12th, during a live OVW TV event, Dallas was involved in a planned moment of physical contact with a wrestler that resulting in him suffering a head injury. Traditionally, when a ring injury occurs, the referee is the center point of communication, assessment, and decision-making. In this unprecedented situation, the person who would normally make the assessment was the one who needed the assistance. The unforeseen breakdown in communication contributed to a delay in stopping the match and concluding the show. We are relieved to hear that Dallas is recovering and receiving the medical care he needs. Our thoughts are with him, and we're hoping for his continued improvement. At OVW, the health and safety of our performers and officials have always been our top priority. We are proud of the standards we've maintained over the years, but we've also recognized that there's always room to strengthen and improve. With that in mind, we are reviewing our existing procedures and updating several of our in-ring and ringside procedures and protocols to ensure that we continue to meet the highest expectations to performer safety. These updates include enhanced communication systems, additional referee training, and expanded ringside response measures to help ensure that a situation like this is identified and addressed as quickly as possible. We appreciate the concern and passion from our fans, and we understand the importance of transparency during moments like this. We will continue to share updates when appropriate, and we ask everyone to keep Dallas in your thoughts. What's most amazing about this is there was never any protocol if a referee is injured. None. Zero. How do you update that? How do you be a trainer for decades. What if the referee gets hurt? There was none. You never discussed with any of your wrestlers, what if the referee gets hurt? What if a cameraman gets hurt? What if a fan at ringside gets hurt? I mean, forget the cameraman and fans for now, not trying to be nasty, but you never discussed with the wrestlers what to do if a referee gets hurt. How is that not in your protocol? That's unacceptable. For an indie promotion, for a backyard wrestling event, I could get it. For a company that might be new, somebody that has rotating talent, and they're dependent and hopeful that everybody coming in has that experience already, but you had no protocol whatsoever. And he admits it in this statement. There is no protocol ever if a referee gets hurt. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. A simple pinch, a simple wink, a simple under your breath, okay. Nothing. Zero. None of the wrestlers did it. Now, I want to show you something. Okay? Back about 18 years ago, I took a chair shot from a wrestler by the name of Jason Static. All right? I'm in the corner, sitting up, and he hits me square in the head with the chair. And this was discussed in advance that I was going to get knocked out in the corner. And I sold it as best as I could. Now, what happened was there's a match going on for a championship, and the referee is refereeing the match. Now, I get hit with the chair. I'm not, a good guy, and I get knocked out. And while I'm there, if you watch this, I want to see if you guys could spot when someone checks on me to see if I'm okay. I will give you a hint. It is not the close-up of my face, but I want you to watch this. And so I can tell you firsthand, because I did suffer a concussion and I did throw up 3 times that night. And it's my fault because I wanted to take the spot. I'm an idiot for doing so. Thank God I never suffered anything after that. And there's nothing on the person who did it, but I got hit so square in the head. You'll hear the shot. There's no ring post. The ring post is behind the turnbuckles. So when you see the shot and you hear the shot, just watch me and try to see if you can figure out who checked on me. And I will tell you this, I was checked on almost immediately. But this is how you do it, in my opinion, on the low-budget indies without giving away the obvious. So this is me about 18 years ago.
I don't think that big fella intends to sit down with that chair. Oh, my God! Jason Static now.
See the dent in the chair?
Right. Can get. I know.
The chair got dented pretty good.
A powerful by Jason Stack. And there we go. The end, ladies and gentlemen. The fat lady is sung. And there's several in the audience tonight. The Howard Beach fans aren't so happy, but everyone else is. All those fans that Don Tony seem to have brought in are not very happy. But Jason Static it's ecstatic. That fell in the corner doesn't look very much alive.
Look how long I'm laid out there. Look how long. Look how long I'm laid out over there.
We have here a wounded Don Tony and Reefer. I thought he was dead. He doesn't know where he is.
Oh, I sucked. I sucked, man. Soon as I got hit, two things happened. Reefer turned around to me and he said, "You all right?" And I just moved my finger just a little. Just a little. And behind me, right on the bottom, was a cameraman that was doing camcorder stuff. And from underneath in a crouch position, he's like, "You okay?" And I just very, very slightly just went like this, I gave him a gesture that I was okay. But two people checked on me immediately and I was fine. Reefer was immediately turned around and he's like, "You okay?" And I just did a quick hand gesture. You just see my hand is on the floor and you'll just see me go like this, and that was discussed. But the idea is if I don't answer at all, then something else could be going on. But you see, I was laid out there for a good minute and a half. Nobody came up to me. But the point is, I told them immediately that I was fine. Now, at the time, I was saying to myself, wow, it was a good chair shot. The chair was dented and everything. I didn't expect to go home and puke my brains out a couple of times. But the point I'm getting at is Jason did nothing wrong. Me, I shouldn't have taken it, but it was my choosing to do it. I wanted to take it. And I felt like if I'm going to take it, I want it to be good. Either I take it and be good or not take it at all. The point is, it's good that more protocol is being done. The weird thing about it is this kid probably wants to continue his wrestling career. Physically, I don't know, what goes from here. His mother is very, very livid at OVW for not having better protocol. Does she sue? It's possible. Listen, I'll say this in closing. Nothing good on OVW's part here. Other people have had shit happen. Never in OVW's backyard like this, under Al Snow's watch. Now it's happened. So now other protocol will be done. This will be a learning lesson for other wrestling venues out there. Now, the unfortunate thing is, how many wrestling events went on yesterday and today, and you know for a fact that those indie events did not have any safety protocol discussed in advance. Because let me tell you how most of these indie shows happen. The wrestlers come in from the airport. They'll either drive to the arena themselves, or they'll take an Uber, or somebody who works for the wrestling company will pick them up at the airport or pick them up at the hotel. I've done it many times for wrestlers. You bring them to the building. And then they're in the back and they're all, going over matches, getting dressed, oiling up, whatever they're doing. And then they go over the match order and they figure out when they're going to be on, what spots they're going to do. Some people will end up working out in the ring. Some people will run the ropes. Some people will do things. You never have a point where all the wrestlers get together and discuss protocol. So an indie event goes on like planned. I fucking guarantee you 99% of the indie shows that went down this weekend did nothing different. There is no such thing like, hey, everybody, let's have a meeting. Let's go over this. Let's go over that. Let's discuss protocol. Even though I did nothing, worthy of anything, I was around it for well over a decade. And I could tell you, other than going over basics in the school and going over with the promoter to tell them, yes, I know this, I know that, the promoter does not go up to every individual and do that. You think they're going to go up to people that work the indies all the time and say, hey, Joe, let's just use a generic name, Joe, you have safety protocol. There is no class to take. There is no first aid to take. When this 22-year-old Dallas Edwards says, I hope that there's better training and protocol. Absolutely. And that's very awesome on his part to be so not about me, let's make sure it doesn't happen again. But how do you do that? It's not a requirement. It's not a requirement for the State Athletic Commission. Wrestlers are not there all day long that they can all see a seminar. There's no certificate like a defensive driver. Like I teach defensive driver classes, how to be a better driver. There's a certificate that you receive that you give to your insurance company. You get 10% off your car insurance. You get full points off your driver's license, and the certificate's good for 3 years. Our state's going to start putting out a video that every wrestler has to watch online and print out their certificate. And whenever they go to an indie wrestling event in their state, they have to present this safety certificate that I did like an OSHA class. That's the only thing that could change officially, statewide, worldwide, but that's not going to happen. So when you hear we're going to change our protocol, well, you know what who's going to change? Listen, make sure that somebody checks the referee. If there's no response, somebody go down to ringside. There's really nothing much they're going to do. So even though we might feel that substantial changes are going to be made, honestly, my friends, I hate to say this, it doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, you realize that at these events, there is such small amount of time between the wrestlers arriving and then the wrestlers leaving that there is no uniform thing. OVW might be a little different. Because if they have like a school and the same people are there every single time, yeah, you could show a video. What video? I don't know what you could do. There is no standard safety class. There is no class to protect referees. It's just basically saying, listen, if a referee's knocked out, I don't care where you are in the match. I don't care what you're doing. Somebody has to go check. If not, all of them have to go check in different ways. Or you have a camera guy at ringside or somebody at ringside that has to be the person to check. When I used to work indie events, there used to be a doctor sitting. Anybody remember in the Philly area, for any of you out there that used to wrestle, anybody remember Frank Talent, State Athletic Commissioner from Pennsylvania? I used to sit right next to him at XPW events, and they required a doctor right at ringside. They required somebody at ringside at all times. So if something went wrong, somebody was there almost immediately to go check it out. And that was fucking 24 years ago. So unfortunately, there's not much that's going to change. But, could somebody come out with a standard video? Sure. But how are all the states going to come together on one uniform thing? Like when you take a defensive driver from me, it's only good in New York. If you showed a certificate to an insurance company in Florida, they'll say, good. Oh, that's nice, but that doesn't apply to us. So that's that. So before we close this out, Mystico and Jet Speed are the new trios champions. Interesting. I'll be honest with you. I don't remember who I predicted in that match. I don't remember, to be honest with you. I do remember saying that Hangman, lost the trios titles so he can work, against MJF. And a lot of people thought he dropped the trios titles so he could become world champion. But, we had a glitch before, Jay. I don't know what happened, but some people were saying that the audio cut out or something and something reset a little while ago. I don't know what happened, but I thought that we lost the stream too. So once in a while, I get these weird gremlins on the show. I get weird gremlins, but Mystico signed with AEW. That is a very good signing. Mystico is huge. The thing is, Mystico in CMLL is much different than Mystico in AEW. You got to understand something. This is, I guarantee you, I already see it coming. Some people out there will equate this to Rey Mysterio signing with WWE or Rey Mysterio signing with WCW. I don't think you should use the WCW reference because the Luchadors were never the big center of attention in WCW. Like, they were like novelty. They were like the opening of the show to get everybody warmed up. It's kind of like what Color Me Bad was for Paul Abdul. I think some people will equate it to when Rey Mysterio signed with WWE, and I don't think that's appropriate. The thing is, understand Místico was massively over for a Lucha Libre product. Doesn't mean that working some indie events in the United States didn't mean that he wasn't over. But he is not someone who is, as far as professional wrestling goes, outside of Lucha Libre, he is not one that would be the center of AEW. There are so many other names, from Ospreay to Moxley to everyone else, that this guy is suddenly not going to be the cornerstone of AEW. He will fit in nicely, and there are enough wrestlers on that roster to keep him busy for a year or two, easily. So Místico will do great in AEW, but the idea is his value in AEW is going to be diminished compared to what he was in CMLL. He'll have more eyes on him now, and he'll become a household name as far as AEW fans go, but the way he's used is not going to be the same like he was in CMLL. But here's another thing, too. I think a lot of people forget that AEW does have a deal in the Latin market, and having Místico in AEW, that is just something that will boost the Latino market. So that's good. That is good for them. That is a good signing. That is a very good signing. So, all right. Do we have any other match results before we start wrapping this up? Any other Revolution match results? Rojo Bear says JD and Sapp are talking about Ronda's Sandy Hook controversy. Why tonight? Is it really needed tonight? I mean, I don't know. It's not a topic that you should avoid, but, sometimes I'm like, why tonight? I don't know. Oh, MJF versus Místico Grand Slam Mexico. That's definitely a possibility. I mean, you would think Místico would main event that, right? You kind of have to do that. It's definitely possible. The thing is, Místico is good enough. I think Místico Andrade. I think we all agree Místico and Bandito, Místico Andrade. And like I said, they have enough people on their roster. Místico will be busy for quite some time. But, outside of Grand Slam Mexico, I don't think you suddenly just put everybody aside and just put the Jets on him. He will be a nice signing for that company. No question about it. So, I think we could start bringing this on. We're almost at 3 hours, so I thought we were going to finish at 2.5, but that's okay. I definitely think we needed to get into some other topics. And shout out to Scorpio, who's live. Thank you very much for your generosity, my friend. He says, thanks for keeping him entertained. Much love to you as well. And I hope, listen, I know we had AEW Revolution tonight. So, it's always a sticky situation when you do a live show during a premium live event or a pay-per-view. But I also understand not everybody tunes into AEW, not everybody tunes into WWE. And, our shows have to go on. But I just appreciate everybody who stuck around and spent a few hours of your Sunday with me. Yaboy says that Britt Baker tweeted that her return is not up to her. Yeah, I mean, she is probably one of the few people left that I think some people in AEW probably would rather see her leave. I mean, when you think of I'm not saying that MJF said that, but when you listen closely of what Swerve says and what MJF says and what some others say, especially about Darby recently with Ariel Wani, comments like that, anything that could perceive to be negative on AEW side, that's what I was talking about, that, you could be silenced very quickly. Don't forget what Camille said at that convention a little over a year ago. when Camille was a little frustrated about 14 months ago on how she was being used in AEW, and then almost 3 weeks later, she's attacked and never to be seen on AEW TV again. I think she was on a Collision or Rampage a couple of days. I think it was Collision a couple of days, and that was it. That was it. And I always thought that comment she said on that convention was the nail that sealed the coffin for Camille. Britt Baker making a comment like that publicly is definitely one that would piss off some people in that company. So I'll say this in closing. Why doesn't Tony Khan just let her go? Business is business. You look at Ray Phoenix. You look at 90-day no-competes. You look at Britt Baker. You look at Danhausen. You sign a contract for X amount of dates or days, and you get paid during that time. If the promoter doesn't want you to leave for the competitor, or even if the promoter has no use for you right now, you could cry, you could complain, you could bitch, you can, you could tease, you could write cryptic stuff. At the end of the day, you sign a contract to work 3 years. You got paid for 3 years. If I have you sit at home for 3 years and you don't like it, you got paid for 3 years. All right. And the thing is, even though it's an unpopular thing to say, Tony Khan had every right. If these wrestlers have not fulfilled their contract yet, he is not being a scumbag. By everybody thinks that this is kumbaya, like, oh, I want everybody to be happy, even the ones that don't want to do business with us. No, at some point you got to draw the line. You know why? Because if Tony Khan goes out of his way to make exceptions, then you got to do it for everybody. You got to do it for everybody. You cannot turn around and set that precedent. That's why you look at the 1 year no compete that Andrade, the problem he had with WWE. Nothing personal against David Otunga. That guy's a fucking lawyer, and he's going on social media and saying, oh, I could challenge this and you could do this. Yeah, you could do that. And if you had a vagina, you could have had my baby. There's a lot of things you could say. The problem is, the reason why WWE has that 1 year no compete is a deterrent. So people don't say, I'll take an extra aspirin and I could get failed the wellness and I could get kicked out and then I could work AEW in 2-3 months. No, WWE does a 1 year no compete. So if you decide to get up and go, or you think you could sabotage your contract, guess what, Andrade? You got I got some bad news for you. It's a deterrent. So other people don't realize, gee, I could get out this way. And that's all you need is a fucking wrestler to go on TikTok. Hey, want to get out of your AEW contract? This is what you do. Blah, 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 blah. So it's a deterrent. So if a wrestler gets a contract and gets paid for all that time and then gets injured or they have no use for him, gee, I have 3 months left in my deal. You're not using me. Let me go early. Come on, I'm such a good guy. Come on, Tony. I thought you were a fan of mine. Don't be very evil. No, it's business. This is not, everybody thought during the pandemic, oh, Tony, such a sweetheart, didn't release anybody during the pandemic. It's business. Welcome to the real world. I don't have any issue with Ray Phoenix being forced to sit out, or Danhausen, or Britt Baker, or somebody else. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of money, but no, business is business. Contract is contract. You signed the deal. You know exactly comes with it, especially now with AEW being around for 7 years, even 4 years. You signed a contract 3 years ago. You know what you're getting. Gee, there might be a point that I might not be used. Tony Khan changes, he plays with his toys and puts them on the shelf after a week. There might be a time that, why am I looking these ways? There might be a time where I might not be used. Do I really want to sign this deal? Sure. And then it happens. Fuck, it happened to me. I'll go on Twitter and I'll complain. This is not the way it is. Wow, United States beat Dominican Republic in the World Baseball Classic. So they advanced to the final. Andrade beat Bandito. Good. That's another one. But I think I chose Bandito. Did I choose Bandito? Trying to remember the other day. I don't remember. I think I did choose Bandito. So that might be the first one I got wrong. I think I did choose Bandito over Andrade. I think Andrade was being an asshole on Collision, and we thought, oh, he's getting the victories here. I think it was Dynamite when he was trolling Bandito a little bit. So I think I did choose Bandito. So it's all right. We got majority of them right. So we got a jet. We're at over 3 hours. So tomorrow I'll be live on Discord right after Raw. Remember, Brock Lesnar will be on, and Roman will be on as well. I think, Roman, I think 5 of the last 6 weeks, 5 of the last 6 weeks Roman is on, and I think all 6 weeks Brock is on. But Brock will be back tomorrow. So I'll be live on Discord tomorrow. Probably next Monday, we will start up again on YouTube. Honestly, there's nothing stopping me from starting tomorrow. But the thing is I actually have to set up a few different things, especially on Monday nights. I come on Discord, not physically, but I go on Discord and, there's no video. So things are handled a little bit less professional. I can let my hair down a little bit. I still got my hair, but, there's nobody in the camera. So, I might be shirtless and you don't know. No, I just, plus, I do understand. And this is another reason why on YouTube, there's a lot more interaction, and it's not just supers. I mean, I appreciate all of you. Trust me, you help me tremendously stay alive and pay the bills, but there's more interaction as well. Discord is a very, very, very small community, which is awesome. And that's why I will not shut down Discord, because it is a very fun atmosphere there. And I know a lot of people, plus you could post little pictures when you talk and, nothing perverted, but it's just a different climate there. But starting a week from tomorrow, we'll have YouTube and Discord going at the same time. I just have to do some checks during the week to make sure that the audio doesn't repeat, that as long as, I don't have any echoing, which is sometimes a big problem for some people out there with Discord and YouTube streaming at the same time. It's not that much of an issue for me, because if I need to, I'll just put a laptop in here and have one on one platform and the other on another. But that's all behind the scenes stuff. So I have some time this week to work on it, and we go from there. So much love. Let's see what happens. We'll definitely talk about MJF and Hangman Page tomorrow night. And we'll see. Does MJF lose his championship, or does Hangman Page lose his opportunity to never challenge for the AEW World Championship again? My prediction the other day, I'll say this in closing, I honestly feel that Hangman Page, we don't know what his future is. We don't know if he's looking to step back a little bit, maybe work part-time. I never heard of anything about going to WWE. At the same time, wrestling sometimes doesn't have to adhere to its storylines. There's an unwritten rule, that, hey, the stipulation is it can never fight for the championship again. Yeah, that's one storyline away a couple of years from now. If the fans really, really want and demand Hangman Page get a shot again, you write the storyline the right way, you can make the fans feel like, that they changed the story. Just like Cody Rhodes, I honestly never understood why Cody did that, other than the fact that I always felt if he was going to become world champion again, it was either WWE or nothing. But Hangman Page, no reason why you can't come up with a storyline later on and give him a title shot. No one is going to say, I'm not watching AEW anymore. They did a match where Hangman could no longer challenge, and now they're making him challenge again. No, I'm never watching him again. You don't want fans like that. So we don't know the reason why they're doing this. And for all we know, Hangman Page could end up being champion. But my gut feeling is that he loses, and then in the future, he will be trolled. As long as he stays in the company, he'll be trolled that he can't fight for the championship anymore. And that alleviates some pressure on Hangman Page too. you'll lose that buzz online. Oh, Hangman Page, he should be the champion. He should get a title shot. That pressure is no longer there. No, he can't. So we'll see what happens, but we'll definitely talk about it a little bit tomorrow. So I want to thank you all, as always, for your support. I'm going to jet out of here, and if I don't see you tomorrow, I'll see you next Sunday on a sit-down. Be well, everybody. Much love.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the hosts. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.